Hi. So, here we have it. Uh, should there be sound? Hello. Hi. So, yeah, there we go. There's sound. Okay. Good. Post Malone. Don't know why I said that. Okay. Pin to your profile. Pin. Yes. And go. Okay. Uh, um. Okay. So yeah. Title. Let me just check that the title is good, because sometimes if the thing is too long, it might not actually put the title there. But I think we're on by. Yeah, we're good. Okay, here you have it. I didn't share it out, but um, Israel strongly condemns Iranian attack on international ship, sees escalation of Tehran bilingual. Netanyahu statement. The U.S. Congress aims to improve additional aid for both Israel and Ukraine by Christmas, NBC News. As far as I understand, Yemen Houthis, who is a Iranian-backed militia operating within Yemen, as I said, uh, have taken over or seized a British national ship sailing through what must have been the Red Sea, or going towards the Red Sea. Don't think it was the Persian. This right here is latest battle footage, actually. Check this out. So here you have it. This is from footage of very large tunnel in Gaza being blown up by Israel Defense Force. Check that out. Boom. Boy. That was underneath the ground there. That is a huge explosion. I mean, especially because it was contained underneath the ground. So that's a huge explosion you got yourself there. Could have been a bunker buster or something. Or just something very large. Jesus Christ. They are working their ways through the tunnels of Gaza. Well, Hamas is still operating underneath the tunnels. They're still doing their things underneath the tunnels. And they have not moved since the beginning. They continue to, well, Witchy, welcome in. Yeah, ship. Let's see if we can get it. Wait, to get this. I had it right here. Damn it, where'd it go? Reports that the Bahabash flagged vehicle transport carrier Galaxy Leader has been attacked by Houthis rebels in the Red Sea. So not only one ship, but what appears to have been more than one ship. So, reports that the Bahamas flagged vehicle. I spelled that wrong. Welcome in, Deception. About the hospital? I'll get it. I'll get it. So, reports that the Bahamas flagged vehicle transport carrier Galaxy Leader has been attacked by Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. An Israeli source tells Barak Varit in Houthi rebels took over the ship. That's one of the videos there. We've also got further videos. Continued clashes between Israel and Lebanon continues to happen throughout the day. Happened quite earlier this morning here, so there's have to go quite through. it does appear that the Houthis, that the Yemen-backed Houthis, who are in fact at war with Israel, in case you forgot, is on the warpath and are actually actively right now trying to escalate. So here you have it. The Yemen Houthis posted footage of them hijacking the ships in the Red Sea today. They say they're holding 22 crew members hostage. It's a British national ship sailing through the Red Sea. I don't know why they're playing that music right there. I don't really need to hear that. But, yeah. And there you have it. They come up to the ship with their guns and everything. Come aboard. And, well, as a crew member of a ship like that, you don't really have a lot of choices because, well, when you don't have the guns to help gun that, which is very unlikely that they have and got. 86, welcome in. Have they said taking the ship? No, I don't believe. The factor is, at the moment here, this was uploaded 42 minutes ago. Here you have it. Oinsnik uploaded 42 minutes ago. The Ashley Ship Anti-Aircraft Company. Oh, that's the Russian. Blah, blah, blah. He uploaded that's 2 hours ago. What the fuck? Where did it go? There you have it. So, no, there hasn't been any later developments. It appears that they have 32 hostages, many of who I am not aware if they are British nationals or if they are international nationals. Believes that they are. So the House says they plan to hold 22 crew members of the ship they took over today hostage in the Red Sea. So this, oh, sorry, I said 32. I meant 22, which is what I read before. So yeah, they plan to take 22 crew members hostage. I don't know if they're nationals. No, not 42, which is 22. Arab news media reported that there has been a ceasefire. Well, this is quite new. Happened some time ago. But yeah. There's been a lot of ship news. For some reason today, a lot of ship news has been happening, but I have got another one here as well. That the dry ship called Paldara, which was coming from Odessa, which is in Ukraine, split into two during a strong storm off the coast of Turkey. All crew members on board were successfully rescued. But it seems to me that the ships of the world at the moment right now is not doing too great, because this happened today as well. I've seen this happen before. These tanker ships, they're not really... The stupid thing is that they built these ships to withstand the waters, but they don't build them to, you know, withstand rough waters. Which is weird, because they're actually built to wave like that. They're actually built to, you know, go up and down like that, which is funny to think about. But for some reason, they just build it so that it's also able to break off. It's happened before. This is not the first time an oil tanker has broken itself off. That looks like to be half of the ship right there. That's half of the ship, yeah, and that's the other half right there. To be fair, it was very, very rough seas, very rough seas, and they are actually built to sort of bounce, or how could you put it, sort of follow with the waves. They're not built to that rough waters, and especially because they're so heavy. And when you know, because you have to imagine if you have a ship and there was just, you know, that didn't go along with the waves, that wasn't able to bend or anything like that, and it was just straight, you know. If you were to have a lot of cargo at the top of that ship, and you then go over a wave, the weight of the top of the ship would become overwhelming, and it could actually cause the whole ship to capsize. especially if you're going right over a wave. The whole ship could just go down. But instead, they fixed that by actually making the ship able to not be straight when you're going over a wave, but actually follow along with the wave. And they actually built the ships to be able to do that. Now, those are cargo ships that are able to do that. Many ships that have sort of a long rear end are able to do something like that. You also have very large. If you have very large, you have very large ships like cargo ships that can do kind of the same thing, but it's it's as far as I'm understanding, that's why. Anyways, I'm not a boat expert, but this also happened. Finnish military to build fence at Russian border. The Finnish military will help with border guards erect fence near Kyumu, a town near the Russian border, amid concern about migrants crossing in from Russia, the Finnish broadcasting company reported. So Finland, Estonia is pretty much closing up their border with Russia. They haven't made that official announcement saying that nobody can come through and there isn't that they've actually blocked it, but it's getting there. Kazakhstan has blocked Russian TV portal Sputnik 24, according to November 8th, reported from Kazakh media outlet Arab Media. The IDF announces the release of hostages showing 55-meter long tunnel underneath Shafir Hospital. Yeah, alright. Well, let's get that video from IDF. Right, let's get that video up.
Very sophisticated area, very threatened area.
I can show this one. I can't show the other one. I can show this one. So listen to this right here. This is it. This is the truth. Okay, this is the truth.
We've arrived at the Shifa Hospital. To the back of you, you see intact the Qatari section of the hospital. Lights are on. The hospital is still functioning. This has been a very slow and gradual operation in discovering munitions, weapon caches, and tonight.
So keep in mind what he's saying is, it's been a slow process of discovering weapons and munitions inside of the hospital itself.
We found the first very sophisticated shaft. This shaft was in a sheltered area inside the hospital under a car that was full of weapons.
That right there is inside the hospital. That right there is inside the hospital.
Weapons ready for forces that
underneath
came
the
near
hospital.
The hospital. We're in a very threatened
and inside,
area.
underneath
and inside.
And
This is important to show that we found the first shaft here inside the perimeter of the hospital.
So there are tunnels, and that's what he's saying. That right there is this first shaft that he's saying. It's the first shaft found that leads to underground tunnels in which is controlled by Hamas or Hamas uses. This right here is the tunnels that Hamas uses to access the hospital and militarized a hospital. That's what they did. They militarized a hospital, and they've been doing it for a very fucking long time. Trey Yates here, but I think you see that I can't show. So there's part of the video I can't show. Yeah, we get to that. I can show you the first 13 seconds, and then I can't show the rest. But this right here is a video of hostages, foreign hostages, being released and taken out of the hospital. As you can see, here they come, right? And here they come. They're being taken out. I think that man right there is the one that was hurt. But yeah, I don't know what that doesn't really show anything. But the video of foreign hostages being brought into Gaza's Ashil hospital. Oh, sorry, being brought into. I thought I read out. I don't know why I read out. But I imagine that's why I saw the video. I was like confused as to what I was actually showing there. My bad. All right. Well, I read that wrong. My bad. Ukraine has evidence of 109,000 Russian war crimes, Prosecutor General says. It's our commitment to decide to document, prosecute each and every incident, because each and every incident of war crime has its victims. Well, you're right on that. Right on the money. Pentagon, the U.S., has successfully tested a new long-range precision strike missile that eventually replaces the ATACMS. Damn. They've just they've actually tested something that will replace the ATACMS. Well, you wouldn't think about that. Well, if they do that, then I suggest they give they give some of those ATACMS to Ukraine if they're gonna replace them anyways. Well, if they're gonna replace them anyways, then go to yeah. Well, yeah, I can retweet it. Yeah, I mean most of the videos that I can't show, you can see it on my channels. I usually share them on my channel. Sorry, my well, I say channel. I mean Twitter, right? And yeah. 31 premature babies were, this is from Trey Yinks right now. I'm reading something from Trey Yinks, who's a reporter on the ground. 31 premature babies were evacuated from the Gaza Al Safir hospital. They're in Rafah now and will be moved to Egypt on Monday for further care. Well, that's some good news coming out there. Getting 31 premature babies out of the hospital in good conditions, moved to Egypt where they can get some proper care and be taken care of and well, hopefully survive, right? And let's hope that's the case of the certainty. Former U.S. lady Ruslyn Carter. Oh, Ruslyn Carter. Wait, is that Jimmy Carter's wife? Or ex or whatever? Well, Jimmy Carter is alive. I know that. But his... Oh, yeah. It is. So Ruslyn, yeah, she died today. Ruslyn is the wife of the former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter. Okay. Well, she died today, unfortunately. She actually died before her husband, which many people were probably surprised about. I mean, he's been in hospice for quite a while, Jimmy Carter. So that's definitely something. Israel forces have captured over 100 Gaza terrorists in the recent days, including 3 members of Hamas elite force who took part in October 7th massacre. The terrorists taken to Israel from interrogation revealed tunnel location and operational tactics. Well, as far as I understand at the moment right here, Israel continues to move forward with their operations as they have done so for quite a while. They're being quite good at it. Let's bring you on UA Live. Let's take a live look at it. Well, live, but let's take a look at it, right? Here you have it. This is current situation here. So as you can see, they continue to push forward now. I did say when we got to here that they were going to push over to the sea. That happened. We got word of that. That happened. Then I said they're probably going to push together right here. That happened. So there you go again. And now, which I said as well, they're going to push into Gaza itself. They've actually made the leap to actually get within the center of Gaza, which is what they are. They're in the middle of Gaza right now. That is Gaza right there. I mean, that is the middle of Gaza. And as you can see, they continue... gave the finger to the ceasefire. They did. And well, they're still talking about it. I was hearing about a possible 5-day ceasefire could be happening within the maybe the next week or so, but they have said that they will not stop until Hamas is dead. Therefore, it is important for I think it's important for Israel at the moment right now to continue to operate and to take out the rest of the terrorists and get in complete control of northern Gaza. When they get in complete control of northern Gaza, I do believe that they will stop and take a break, get some logistics. I believe that when they have taken northern Gaza, they will call for a ceasefire in sort, right, to sort of get things going and take a break, or even take a break, or just, you know, and I think that's the most likely scenario that we're looking at right now. I know you might not want to hear it, but we are going to do it anyways. We will look at Ukraine, because Ukraine's still happening. Further developments from nothing here in the Vika area as of yesterday. It happened up here towards the Kharkiv area, actually. This is in the Luhansk region right there. You see some smaller pushes by the Russians in the Luhansk region, taking back some area that the Ukrainians controlled. Still working in the left bank of Kherson. The Ukrainians are still here. They are still working, and they're still doing their job, which is taking out the Russians. Nothing really here around the Rabatani area, in the Zaporizhia area there, but most notably, what has happened throughout the latest days here is definitely the development that's been happening in the Andavika area. The Russians are still trying to pull off a blitzkrieg, which, if you don't know what a blitzkrieg is, that's what the Germans invented. You push around the enemy and you encircle the enemy's main force. And then, either you take them as hostage, you completely wipe them out. Most of the time, those people will surrender, or capitulate or whatever, right? So that's what the Russians are trying to achieve. That is a danger that the Ukrainians are at the moment. The really hard battle. If you were to think to where's the hardest battle right now, the hardest battle is taking place here and here. This is the hardest areas of battle. These two fronts right here is where the hardest battles are taking place. It's very hard down here as well, but it is very hard, especially in these areas where the Russians are trying to gather their forces to try and, take out, completely surround Andavika. If they manage to surround Andavika, well, that's it. Then I don't see the Ukrainians being able to. Then either the Ukrainians would have to launch, of course, a counterattack and break the line, which is possible, of course, or they would have to consider the possibility of pulling back these troops before getting encircled. It's a possibility. I'm going to point it out. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I can't tell you it's going to happen because I don't know. War is unpredictable. However, I do think that it's still very likely that the Ukrainians are able to pull off the idea that they can hold this area here. The problem for the Ukrainians are definitely that they're not as entrenched as the Russians are in some areas, and in technicality they are on the defense, but they're not ducked down in trenches as much as the Russians are. Therefore, they have a constant moving front, because they are now, at this point, they're on the offensive, and when you're on the offensive, you usually don't have as well dug trenches and as the enemy who's on the defense will have, because the enemy is preparing to hold the line. They're preparing to defend. You're preparing to have an offensive. Now, you can't have an offensive if you're in a trench. Will the Ukrainians pull off something like they did in Kharkiv? I think so. I'll be honest with you. You remember the time they pulled off that trick they did in Kharkiv, where they took back the whole Kharkiv in I think it was days, which was an amazing feat of military strategicness. This whole area here, where they pretty much just took that back within days. It was impressive, really impressive. I think it was back in May. So here you have it, right? We go 5 times, you go forward, right? It's going forward. We get to it eventually. So you can see kind of one thing I want to note right here. When we got to the start, if you haven't been here for that long, we were in 2022 right here. This was during the time when the Russians were still holding the right bank of Kherson, the left bank Kherson. They were still holding these areas. They were still doing these things right here. Ocean, welcome in. And this is the time when the Russians were still pulling these small advances, and then the Ukrainians pulled off something which was so amazing, but we'll probably get to see it. There you have it. There's one line push right there. The Russians were still at this time able to pull off some kind of offensive. That right there is pretty much what Blitzkrieg is right there. Meeting the two forces right there. It's gonna get there. I can't remember what time it was. When did they take Kharkiv? Maybe this is stupid. It did in 2023. Come on. There you have it. Look at that. There, look at that. Look at that. So that was within days. You know, that operation right there. Which is, you know, this was what made us believe that Ukraine could win. Because this right here was what made everyone believe, holy shit, Ukraine can actually do this. Because look at this. I'm so sorry. Oh my god. Look at that right there. And that was days. Like, that was 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. Like, that was days development. And that run right there was what made everyone believe that Ukraine could win. Because the Russians were so overwhelmed, like, with, well, all kinds of defenses. Then they managed to pull back there. They managed to pull back the front there. They managed to continue to push. They continue to push, continue to push. They pushed them all the way back to what is the current line, which is along that road, pretty much along that line right there. Look at it. That right there is what set the path for Ukraine to be a winner. That right there was what made everyone believe, holy fucking shit, right? Ukraine can actually win this, and they could actually do it. And that, everyone was like, yeah, amazed. I remember watching it and thinking, holy shit, you know, this was impossible. Like, if you're thinking back, further back, right? Everyone was like, this is impossible. This is not something, you know, this is not something that the Ukrainians can do. This is impossible. Everyone was saying, this is impossible. How did they do this? This is amazing. You know, despite the fact that at the time, you have to remember, this was still in 2022. They were still a better force, you know. The Russians still had men that was able to fight, but the Ukrainians were fighting against that, the better men, and they still lost to the Ukrainians, which was where everyone would just thought, holy shit, you know. So I just want to point that out to you. I want to give you a little bit of knowledge about that, because Ukraine can do this. They've pulled off miracles before, which isn't miracles. They're strategically planned and perfectly planned. They're already doing it. They're on the left bank of Kherson. But there are so many Russian soldiers. Ukraine isn't losing, okay? Ukraine is not losing. There are, perhaps, at this moment in time, a lot more Russians than there are Ukrainians. The fact that Ukraine is holding the line as well as they are is very impressive, because there are a lot more Russians than there are Ukrainians at this moment in time. The Russians are worse quality, and that's much of the reason why we're still holding. But the factor is, as I mentioned earlier, I've mentioned it before, the Russians don't fight with quality. They fight with quantity. They've done it since World War II. They did it in World War I. They've done it all the time. They have always been the bigger army. They've always just simply had more. That's the problem with the Russians. But the Ukrainians aren't losing. It's just taking them a bit because they have to, you know, sort of punch them. They have to punch them, you know, and they have to punch them in sorted. They have to punch them in particular attacks, which I like to point out. But that's, you know, you get it. I just want to point that out to you. I want to give you that because I don't want you to lose faith, and we're not going to lose faith. The Sun, the news organization or whatever, confirmed the presence of several Putins in new study. The study carried out with the help of the artificial intelligence, which analyzes Putin's facial features, gait and speech, showed that at least 2 doppelgangers were speaking in his place, the journalist wrote. Real Putin, looking older, not looking too good. That's the puffy chin Putin. That's the Putin that everyone says has such puffy chins, which, doesn't even look anything like him. That's the Putin that was actually the Putin that we saw in Ukraine. That's the Putin we saw walking around Ukraine, which wasn't Putin. That's a real Putin, and you can see that. But it's been a while since I've actually seen what looks like this and not that guy right there. So to me, it still seems weird. I don't know. I guess that he is. I mean, I don't think it's impossible the factor that he is using doppelgangers. We're talking about the Russians here, General Staff, air defense downs 15 out of 20 drones in overnight attack by the Russians. Russian forces launched a drone attack across Ukraine's northern border around 8:45 p.m. November 18th. At least one infrastructure site was hit. And by the way, if you're here to want to know about the ship, I'll reiterate what we were talking about at the current moment. 22 hostages of foreign identities, which is what I'm saying right now. We don't know where they're from. It is a British ship, so they could be from Britain. But, just because it's a British ship doesn't mean they're from Britain. That's how the shipping world works. They've been taken hostages. We're talking about 22 crew members have been taken hostage, and we are at the moment in time very concerned. I'd say people are very concerned. So that's the iteration of it. I'll get you more if I have more. Hopefully they're not getting shot. This could be a very wild escalation, which is why we're watching it. It could be a very wild escalation. With the help of the S-16s, Ukraine will be able to push the Russian aviation away and cover ground troops. The Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Colonel Yuri Igat states, well, that's true. And that is true. And that's what we're waiting for right now. When those F-16s get into Ukraine, I believe so. IDF releases footage of 2 hostages led by captures of Shafir Hospital's Army Shafir soldier Nadir Noah Makana was murdered by Hamas terrorists at Shafir. Damn. Napoleon's hat, that's one thing right here, has sold for an auction for almost 2 million euros. The headdress of the famous Frenchman who sold for a record of 1.9 million euros during the sale of the collection of the Jean Lochier, whatever. Initially, they asked for 600 to 800,000 euros for this lot. Napoleon hat dates from around 1810. Here's the picture of it. This is the actual Napoleon hat, the one he wore. Well, it's a very famous hat, and it was sold today, I think, actually. So, would you like to own the Napoleon hat? Kind of do. I feel like it would be, I don't know. I feel like it would be fun to own the Napoleon hat. Yeah, there you go. At the beginning of the war, Lukashenko negotiated evacuation route through Warsaw, and the U.S. assumed the Kyiv would fall within 3 days. The book by Polish journalist Zbigniew Parfanowicz, whatever that name is. Holy shit. Yeah. Well, everyone was skeptical in the start, and nobody believed Ukraine was going to win, but they did, and they have. They have won many times, I'd say. But there's still a long fight to go. Finland sent its military to the border to strengthen border defense. Yes, that they did. The first... Oh, yeah, look at that. So winter is coming. The first snow fell today in different parts of Ukraine, in the east, the center, and even in the south. Here we have it. Winter is coming, and this is a significant event because winter is exactly what we've been waiting for quite a long time. Winter is a crucial time for a military to fight, and in their fighting weeks, they have to, prove themselves. This is a time of standstill. Usually during the winter month, it's mostly a standstill. You know, there's not a lot of movement usually during the winter month, but I mean that may change. That may not change. I mean, we'll have to see, right? It's gonna be a hard winter for the Russians. I'll tell you that much. You know, so it's gonna be a little hard for winter for the Ukrainians, but for the Russians who have no proper boots or proper equipment, you know, clothing wise, they're gonna have a hard time being anything or doing anything. You know, I think so. No, okay, yeah, and then now they're playing Christmas music already. It's November. No proper equipment, yeah. Yeah, it's getting to December now. It's getting there. Snowing and blowing and jingle of care. Yeah, so snow in Ukraine. For many, it is simply snow. For others, it is a sign. What sign? I'm glad you asked. It's a sign that the Russians are gonna suffer. Do we like the Russians to suffer? Yes. That sounds quite bad. But I'm not talking about every Russian in Russia. I'm talking about the Russian soldiers. That not only could it cause but think about this: if the Ukrainians said to the Russians, "Hey guys, we actually have proper, we actually have proper boots and proper equipment over here. Come on over here. Come on. We don't bite. We may shoot you, but we don't bite. Come on. You know." A video of a drone in the Moscow region has appeared. There's drones in Moscow. The Bratislava to reject EU's latest sanction package is include the ban of Russian nuclear fuel. Slovakia Foreign Affairs Minister Jura Blana claimed that Slovak nuclear plants has not been sufficiently transformed to operate with alternative fuel. Slovaksa reported. And I was like, such bullshit, because I believe it is. I just think it's Urban saying to, well, he's not part of that. No, Urban's Hungary, so that's Urban. But Slovakia has also become quite pro-Russian lately. So it could be a lie, but, you know, we never know. Shit, okay. So the Popocatépetl volcano has begun erupting in Mexico. The yellow level of alert has been declared. Authorities are evacuating the residents of nearby areas. Holy fucking shit. Okay, their own winter gonna act against them? Exactly. Siberian winds aren't gonna work in the favors of the Russians this time. I said to you some time ago, you're probably here, if you were here, I said to you that there has been, you can go back, I have a video on it that literally has the title of there is worldwide right now volcanoes going off. There is a worldwide volcano alert coming from scientists, from all kinds of people within these areas that experts within these areas. And I seriously don't know what the fuck's happening, but we're seeing it in Iceland where the tectonic plates are moving. There's been volcanoes in Italy, there's been a volcano in Iceland, and now there's been a volcano in, I think there's also some volcanoes in Indonesia, which was a bit further back, and then there's been a volcano in Mexico. Sorry, the hell? Yeah. But look at that right there. That's a volcano eruption right there, and the yellow alert has been related, which means you have to evacuate. They've already evacuated a whole town in Iceland. If you didn't know, the camera on the left side is actually looking down in the area where there's a town. It's very foggy on the camera, as you can see right now. Now you can't see that right now, but you know, but yeah. There, you know, that whole town. There's a whole town in Iceland, okay? Not just a few houses. No, a whole town in Iceland has been evacuated because of this is happening. Because things like this is happening. I've told you before and say it again. The world's changing right in front of us. It's going to be a lot colder before it gets a lot hotter. Some people are even stating it's going to get a lot colder. Now, it has a trigger effect, right? If a lot of volcanoes goes off, covers the sky in ash and soot and everything, you know, covers the sun, it's going to get colder. That's already happening. You know, it gets colder, and the reason why it gets colder is because when sunlight don't get through, UAV, I think it's called on English, yeah. Lighting don't get through, and well, don't get reflected off the sun, off the earth, and well, it doesn't get warmer, right? I think that was the best way to explain it. It may have been a bad explanation, but I think that's how you explain it. Could have been bad. I don't know. There's obviously a lot more science to that, but you get it. The heat don't get trapped in the atmosphere because it doesn't get through. That's what I wanted to say. Well, if the San Andreas fault goes off, you're certainly gonna have to watch out because that is a massive fault. That, you know, that's a problem. And of course, Yellowstone's a problem, but people are overstating just how big of a problem Yellowstone is. Yellowstone is not that big of a problem. By the way, that's the town right there. That's the town. You can see it in the background there. But it's very foggy, and that right there is a lighthouse, but it's very foggy today. But that right there is the city that could blow at any minute. And if you don't know, I'll explain to you here. This right here is a lava magma line underneath this long 15-kilometer long line. There's a line of pretty much what I'd say lava magma running underneath these cities right here. This city right here, that at any moment could spew up. Oh shit, there's a 2.1 magnitude earthquake right now. Just right there. Look at that. That's a big one. 2.1 magnitude earthquake right there. There's still a lot going on in Gaza. Those bangs that you're hearing is coming from Gaza. But yeah, so that right there is a 15-kilometer fault line, pretty much. It's pretty much like San Andreas, where there's also this kind of thing right here, but it's sort of like a long stretched out volcano that could erupt at any minute, and it will erupt quite far out. If it erupts in the ocean, a new island could appear. It could appear. That's what they're talking about. They're still studying it. But if, you know, recently in Japan, something like this actually happened, and it actually erupted in the ocean, and a new island has just appeared off the coast of Japan. Pretty much exactly the same way Iceland came up, you know, but it was a much bigger eruption back then. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what could happen here. And if it erupts out here in the ocean, a new island could appear, which would be the least harmful one. If it erupts anywhere on land, that's obviously where it could do the most damage. And if it erupts right there, which is the city, that's where it could explode a whole town, you know. Mother Earth is really ticked off. Well, yeah. Well, this is not exactly human fault. You know, this is we humans can't control this. This is the Earth. You know, this is not something we can control. This is the Earth cycle. This is what it does. You know, we have no control over this. Ex-Twitter CEO Yacarino has been contacted by a groundswell of leading advertising X has suggested that she would make a statement about racism and anti-Semitism by stepping down. She has so far resisted their entries. Yeah. There you have it. If Ukraine war is frozen, Russia will have 6 years to prepare for direct conflict with Russia, according to a study by German scientific foreign police. The pretext that Russia are likely to use in an attack on the Baltics. Why 6 years? Very specifically, 6 years. No matter what, are we heading for World War III? That's a question that's on a lot of people's lips. I continue to hear it. I continue to hear it on social media. People talk about it. People spout off all kinds of lies. They go around. They go on podcasts and they go, it's about to happen. It's actually, listen. That does nothing more than frighten people. What you have to do is stay alert, stay ready in your mind. I'd say stay ready in your mind. And what you have to do is stay informed. Okay, that's the best thing you can do. And I can't tell you if a World War III is heading our way, because whatever happens, if Ukraine manages to win in Russia against Russia, well, then it won't be a World War III. Not likely, not for a long time at least. But we are definitely heading down. Fear-mongering media, yeah, that's exactly what they are, right? We're certainly heading down a path that could see the Earth entering into a more unstable era of conflict, especially in the Middle East and in Europe, where tensions are high in some areas. Well, in many areas, the tensions aren't high; they are global high. They are, heating high, and So yeah, I see the Earth heading for a more conflicted side, and it's certainly going to be harder to be a human in this world. But it's not likely at this moment in time that we're heading for a direct conflict with Russia or China. I don't think so. I don't think we're heading for a direct conflict with Russia or China. No, I don't think so. I think it's going to take some time. If we are, well, then we are. But if we aren't, we aren't. That's the best way to put it. So, I can tell you, and a lot of people ask, but I can't tell you, because I don't know. All I can honestly tell you is we are heading towards a point where we are going to see a lot more conflict and a lot more tension in the world, and it's going to be a lot harder to be a human and to enjoy life. And, well, the things that many people did and have done, and so many of you may have enjoyed a long time, a period of peace, and that may have ended, or but yeah, there you have it. So that's the best thing I'm going to put it. Oh, do you know what that is? Look at this right here. Do you know what that is? That's a Thompson, not a Tommy. It's a Thompson gun. It's a World War I magazine gun. It's kind of like the first machine gun, right? And it has a water cooling system, as far as I understand. And the reason why people love using it is because of said system. This is obviously modified, and they're restored to their previous conditions, or even being kept. But they have actually continued to use them. And this one, I've actually seen them being planted on trucks. I've seen them being planted on ground areas. I've seen them being planted on roofs, or even being brought to the front. So those things continue to see action, Like, they continue to see action as long as, they are the only guns that have survived war, throughout. They're the only guns we continue to use and that have survived that long, That's impressive. It is impressive to think about it, And it was invented by a guy who, he must have been a brilliant guy. He said, I don't really care about, all that kind of fancy stuff. He just made a machine gun that works, has a smart cooling system, and is durable. That's what he did, and it still works to this day. And that's, I think, that's what you should strive for making guns. Does it work? Can it work? Is it durable? Vehicles, tanks, all those things. That's how you do it. You know, that's how you do it. All right. Egyptian sources report that significant progress in negotiation for the kidnap deal. According to the report, tomorrow at 11 a.m., a ceasefire will begin for 5 days, during which 50 hostages will be released. Okay, so they did say that, and I did think it was going to happen. But yes, in tomorrow at 11 a.m., Israel time, I'd imagine, a ceasefire will begin for 5 days, during which 50 hostages will be released. So that is whatever time that is for you. You can look that up. But tomorrow there will be a ceasefire in Gaza, in which not only hostages will be released, but the world will have a peace of moment to be able to think and really pull things together. And, you know, it's going to be great. So that's happening tomorrow. Keep tuned on that. Here you have the official statement here. So, to the residents of Jabali at Al Jarrah, Tarfa, and Shiraj, the evacuation corridor will remain open until 16 for civilians through the Shala al-Din route. The IDF urges civilians to immediately evacuate for their own safety. There was a local tactical pause of military operations for humanitarian purposes in the Rafah camp area until 14, which is 2 o'clock. Hamas has lost its control of northern Gaza and is trying to prevent Gazans from moving southwards for their safety. Residents whose way is blocked can contact IDF through this number or the signed Telegram channels, Gaza Saver. Damn. Look at that. They even contact us at Gaza Saver. That's a bold one, but a good one too. Comes out. I think Israel agreed to it because then they can get their hostages out, and then they can focus on completely destroying Hamas without having to think about hostages. That's what I think is happening. Israel has quickly backed himself into a corner. I think it's more Hamas that's backed himself into a corner. I think Israel is doing fine, if I'm being honest with you. Team of Russian cyclists tried to break through the Finnish border. They're not Russian cyclists. Well, that's wrong. They're not Russian cyclists. Oh, it's a joke. Right. Okay. Right. Would you look at that? Look at that. GDP per capita purchasing power parity. So in 1980, the South Korea, which were a poorer country, had a less of a GDP than Venezuela. In 2023, the GDP of Venezuela is the same, while South Korea has a $56,000 GDP. Holy shit. You know, that's why you don't fuck around with South Korea. I'm telling you, they have the money, they have the equipment, they have the people, they have, you know, North Korea acts like they can continue to fight off. They could easily take on South Korea, they say. Like, what are you talking about? First of all, they don't have the money, they don't have the equipment, they don't have the endurance, they don't have they don't have more people. You know, the only thing North Korea has that's better than what the South Koreans could prop up is nuclear weapons. That's the only thing. I'll be honest with you. We could end North Korea's aggression, you know, within a day. You just move nuclear weapons into South Korea, and you can end North Korean aggression within a day. Like, that's all you had to do. And people are like, well, won't it cost, you know, China to be mad at us and all that stuff? Well, no. I mean, yeah, it would. But let's be honest. If we were to do that, it would be, not only would it be a checkmate for China, it would be a checkmate for North Korea, who would have US or whoever's nuke on their border. You know, it would be a checkmate for U.S. They would easily be able to put down supremacy. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, that's the way you could do it. Think about it. You know, think about it. But they won't do it because China tells them not to, or wants them not to. You know, and it's like a red line for China, right? I think you could do it. I think you could do it. Again. Oh yeah. The French has tested a M51.3 intercontinental ballistic missile without a nuclear warhead. A modified version of the missile has a range of 10,000 kilometers and is 1,000 more times. Sorry, God damn it, 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Why'd they keep doing that? Huh? Why'd they keep saying that? I mean, I get the reference, but it's like, you know, of course, any bomb nowadays is bigger than the one dropped in Hiroshima. Like, it's like I get it from like for reference, but you know. So this is the French right here, developing their new intercontinental missiles, testing it. That's direct images coming out from that. Why'd they always test these things at night? That's what I don't get. To be removed. David, you know, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and all the Middle Eastern countries have never liked Israel. They've never been allies of Israel, and they had never ever actually liked Israel. And the other point is, why would they plant weapons in the Gaza hospital? We know they've been there. We know they're there. Like, yeah, I don't get it, you know. Oh my god. Holy shit. Takes over the leaning tower in Pisa. Look at that. That's the actual leaning tower of Pisa. You know, what the fuck is that? And plus, Israel has US. They're fine. That's true. and every other US and many European countries also support Israel. So, you know, including me. So there you have it. But holy shit, that's actually insane. That's a very historic monument. That's yeah. Tower leaning more. Well, you're not allowed to go up into it. I think you're not allowed to actually go into it. But yeah. Did you know that the Bleeding Hearts people let them in, and this is what happens? Let's take a crap at all this. Yeah, Bleeding Hearts. So the organization or whoever, somebody let them in. But oh.
In Bakhmut, my comrade was wounded by a...
Snipers are the elites of any army, and it's better not to upset them.
Oh, that's not true. I mean, people say snipers are the elite of any army. That's not precisely true. I wouldn't call a sniper. I'd call them very professional, but I wouldn't call them an elite. I think that's taking Well, I don't know why I have a preference. I don't know why I'm a little bit. I don't know why I said that, but let's be honest here. You have special forces. They're the elite. You have a sniper. You know, I wouldn't call you. Okay, well, you're the elite. Like, I get sniping is not easy, but come on. Okay, I don't know why. I don't know why I said that, but I don't know. Yeah, that might be a bit. Well, if you're special forces sniper, I guess. Well, if you're a special force sniper, then I guess you are technically the elite. Well, then I guess they're right, isn't it?
In Bakhmut, my comrade was wounded by a Russian. I tracked him down and hit him just when he was shooting with an RPG. Then I went to my wounded friend, showed him the video and said, "He's done. I took revenge for you."
His primary weapon is a Barrett MRAD sniper rifle.
In my opinion, the best rifles for the military will work against the
Out of a
rifle, scope, carry a hand.
All right, well, watch this right here. Look at that. That's actually pretty cool. Look at that. So they are the elite. I would meant like, okay, I don't know why I said that. Forget about it. I have certain preferences. I feel like the elite is the elite, the special forces. I don't know. If you're special forces sniper, special form command, then you're the elite. Sure. I don't know. I'm going on a limp right now. Somebody stop me. I don't know.
Snipers are the elites of any army, and it's better not to upset them.
In Bakhmut, my comrade was wounded by a Russian. I tracked him down and hit him just when he was shooting with an RPG. Then I went to my wounded friend, showed him the video and said, "He's done. I took revenge for you."
His primary weapon is a Barrett MRAD sniper rifle.
In my opinion, the best rifles for the military are Barrett and Accuracy International. They say that there is beauty in simplicity, and the Barrett MRAD rifle embodies.
Did you get him? He's done. Yeah, but did you get him? Listen to me. He's done. Okay? He doesn't exist anymore. Okay? I shot his head off. Okay?
It is simplicity. It is rugged, durable, waterproof, and multi-caliber. It takes only 3 minutes to unscrew 2 bolts and set up another barrel, and even the aim point remains the same.
However, besides the rifle, a sniper needs a lot of other equipment.
This is the gear I use on my missions. Body armor with plates and pouches, a standard M4A1 rifle, a helmet with an active noise reduction and a night vision device. Our ghillie suits are lightweight and compact. My primary weapon is a Barrett MRAD sniper rifle in .338 caliber with an Austrian Kallis scope. We also use a Victronics Castrol weather system with applied ballistics. Additionally, we use a belt. We carry a handgun, a first aid kit, and 4 tourniquets.
All of these are needed to successfully hit the enemy, strike them, and then disappear until the next shot.
I take back what I said. This guy is the elite. That's pretty elite. That's some elite shit right there. That's some fucking elite shit right there. Goddamn. I was not aware that that was $53,000. That's a lot. Snow in Poland today. The situation on the border blockade. Our drivers need help. Listen to the driver's explanation. It is in Polish. Everything is clear. Tomorrow, everyone will feel the consequences of the blockade border. I listen to the person speaking, but yeah. So this is the border right here, and you want to notice something, right? 6 minutes, right? We start here. All right, we start right there. That's the first truck, right? Right there, right? That's the first truck. Go to the end. Exactly where does the truck stop? Oh, that's Twitter for you. Come on. Come on, Twitter. Please. We have it. Patrick, go come in. So it starts about like 10 seconds in, right? And he drives past the last truck at 4 minutes and 16 seconds, something like that, right? 4 minutes, 18 seconds. So it's about... Reaching end of snow. Yeah. So 4 minutes of driving, right? 4 minutes of driving in a relatively low, look how slow he's driving. For 4 straight minutes, he drives, and there's a truck blockade that is 4 minutes long. And this is just one of the blockades. Okay? It is insane. There are thousands of trucks right now at the area of the Polish border going into Ukraine. There are thousands. Okay? Look at that. He drives for almost 4 minutes and 20 seconds. That's how long he literally drives. About 4 minutes, 10 seconds, something like that. That's how long he drives at a speed of what appears to maybe be like, what, I don't know how long he's 20 kilometers an hour maybe, I don't know, but he's not driving that fast, right? That is insane. That's insane. Think about. That's actually, like, look at that. It goes on. What he's talking about is that the drivers need help. They're talking about prices are not fair. He's saying also probably that, it's about Ukraine having coming back into the market. War-torn Ukraine coming back into the market could change a lot of things for the Polish drivers who've previously enjoyed quite a freedom in their market because Ukraine have been occupied. So for about 2 years now, these Polish drivers, Polish people, who previously, back in time, may have remembered Poland as to being a country that wasn't very known for its high prices or its great working system. And therefore, we finally got into an area in where Polish drivers, Polish farmers, all these people finally actually got what they deserved, which was, a well-paid salary. They actually got what they, what I'd say, they deserve a well-paid salary. I don't disagree with what they're saying. I just think it's insane to think about that he can drive for 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Biden economics. Well, this is not in America. This is in Poland, Ocean. So I doubt Biden economics has anything to do with this. But people are going to be mad that they're. What the fuck is my package? I ordered a month ago. No, but it's also like, imagine if they're transporting food. Imagine if they're transporting. They can't transport food. Because you can't have, I mean, if it's like frozen down food, then sure, you could do that because you can keep the truck on and you can keep having it, Is it cancer? You can keep having, frozen down fruits and all that stuff. But if you're delivering vegetables, if you're living anything like that, hypothetically, if they were to do that, just saying, it would be pretty insane it's getting pretty insane to be able to actually uphold their the condition of such things, and especially because if there's a lot of things coming into Ukraine that needs to get into Ukraine that is vital for not only the war but for the survival of the people, then it's vital that these things get through that border, but they're not getting through the border because Poland is not allowing them to actually get through the border. So yeah. You know what Moldova could do? Moldova could go, guys, why don't you just drive through my country? I have an open border with Ukraine. You can drive through my country. Go ahead. Moldova could certainly earn some money right now. If they were to be smart about it, they could certainly earn some money, saying to everyone, well, drive around, come into Moldova, I'll let you through. But I don't know. I mean, that's also a bit far-fetched, right? I mean, that's, so whatever. Ukrainian foreign minister reacts to hijacking of Red Sea ship. Ukrainians may have been on board, of course. Of course. Yeah, right. So he reacts to hijacking of the ship in Red Sea. So Ukrainians may have been on board. I mean, I'm sorry. It's not like I don't care for you. I do care for the Ukrainians. Sometimes I just feel like can you just stay out of situation for like like a second? Can you stay out of being in trouble for like a second? Like, could we not have Ukrainians on board of a ship for like a second? Like, I'm just asking. Is it too much to ask? Is it too much to ask? Seriously, is it? I don't think so.
Training of media police officers. Students are expected to be trained to find and block so-called extremists.
Oh, look at that. Media police. Putin brings censorship to a whole new level. Russia has announced a new major in university. The course of media police officers will be a full bachelor degree for those who are ready to serve the regime. Their job will be to identify and block media resources for so-called extremist and destructive materials, while propagandists and nationalist media are ready to prepare to specialists in this field. The Russian Interior Minister does not understand why they need such specialities. UATV journalist Yunvil, how this new university major shows the absurdity of the Russian regime. It certainly does.
The Presidential Academy of National Economy and Public Administration has announced a new course, the training of media police officers. Students are expected to be trained.
You know that guy in the back of the class, or like in the front of the class. You know that guy in your classroom that goes, actually, we have homework for today, and I want to point that out. Like, you have like, imagine if you had like a substitute teacher, right? And you and if substitute didn't know you have homework for, and then the one that kid goes, actually, we have homework for. We have warned them. Yemen is my heart. Well, Yemen. If you're from Yemen, Houthis are not from Yemen. If you don't understand that, but fair enough. But sounds like 1984 to me.
And block so-called extremists, banned and destructive content. The first graduation of bachelors will be in 4 years. It is obvious that the regime is planning to further tighten censorship, experts say.
Content control and filtering is happening everywhere now. It seems
I don't know what that means. Just leave it. It's fine.
This is a good thing at all. Correspondingly, corporations and states have and will continue to have a demand for appropriate personnel. The question is rather what is supposed to be filtered, who will do it, and by what means. Alexander Verkhovsky, head of the Sova Center, in a comment to Radio Liberty.
Officially, the new area of training is called Media Defense of State Interests and National Security. The course program is supervised by journalists and propaganda media experts. At the same time, Russian law enforcers believe that they do not need such experts, Radio Liberty reported, citing its sources in Interior Ministry.
It is unclear why they need to create an entire bachelor's degree when 2 to 4 weeks of additional courses can provide all the necessary knowledge to identify illegal content.
So, so they've created a major that you can get a degree in. At this major, as he describes it, you can actually do in 2 to 4 weeks. So you could actually just go and get yourself like a little bit of a meeting. You go to a meeting for 2 to 4 weeks, and you can have the same skills they would have after doing this for about 4 years.
Where will they put these graduates? Ministry of Internal Affairs universities do not train such specialists because there are no such positions. The Public Relations Department of the Ministry of Internal Affairs is in charge of monitoring the network. From Radio Liberty publication.
The amount of content undesirable to the Russian authorities in social networks and messengers has been growing steadily recently, experts believe. According to Roskomnadzor, there were 16% more such messages on the internet in 2023. In addition, Russian censors are constantly expanding the list of banned topics.
Полностью интернет в России не заблокируют.
The internet will not be completely blocked in Russia, and YouTube will not be blocked completely. Why? For a very simple reason. If young Russians are really deprived of internet access, they will simply go out and tear down Putin and all his henchmen. So they realize this too and are trying to come up with such targeted ways of fighting, when they are not fighting the internet entirely, but what they consider to be harmful content.
Currently, the Federal Service for Supervision and Communications, Information Technologies and Mass Media, Roskomnadzor, is responsible for
turning them
blocking
into
information
fucking
online.
mind-numb
After the start
idiots.
of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the agency has blocked 190,000 materials allegedly containing inaccurate information, 85,000 so-called extremist publications.
Inaccurate information. Ukraine's winning. Inaccurate. You lost 10 tanks today. Inaccurate. You know? But the only media that that Russia will have someone like Jackson Hick, or he'll have some propagandist that's saying Russia has no lost any Russian tank. Russia has gained 10 tanks today. No lost tank. You know, and then Putin goes, correct.
And 30,000 messages that Russians censored, deemed as calls for mass
I don't know why you
social
want to live there.
unrest. At a meeting after the end.
But the thing is, you know, some people actually say, like, why would you want to live there? The funny thing is, nobody actually wants to live there. The problem for Russia, not only the reason as to why they probably invaded Ukraine to start with, was their population problem. You see, nobody wanted to live in Russia anymore. Russia was getting old. Russia was getting tired. It was you know, there was no change in leadership. There was nothing new going on. So there was no changes. You know, it was just the same. It was just, you know, economy was doing all right, but it wasn't, you know, benefiting. You know, people weren't benefiting as much. You know, people living in Moscow, they stayed. People that live in Moscow, they stay in Moscow or in Russia. People that live in outside rural Russia, they don't know much. But people that live just outside Moscow, clever Russians, scientists, all that stuff, they realize that Russia isn't going to use them for their potential. They're going to use them for the potential in war. And they're not going to give them the opportunities, the same opportunities that would be given in the West. That's why people were moving. So all the smart Russians, not only did all the smart Russians leave in the start of this full-scale invasion, but they were also leaving before the war. That was the problem for Russia. Every smart person in Russia with any kind of brain realized that they could just leave, you know? Have you seen 1948, the movie, or read the book? Fortunately not, Witchy. What's it about?
Organized by some Western intelligence
it's about
service
this, I
in
imagine.
Ukraine,
It's
and
kind of
demanded
like this.
increased security measures. According to analysts, this is another reason for the Kremlin to tighten censorship and repressions in the state. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavska, Krystyna Dombrovska, UATV News.
Some people are starting to say, you know, how far is Russia from actually being like the Soviet Union? How far is Russia from changing their flag back to the Soviet Union? I don't think they're far away. I feel like if Russia was to have won in Ukraine, they would have changed their flag back to the Soviet Union. 100% they would have. You know? The Soviet Union, it would have been reborn. Oh, the Moscow suburbs are being attacked by drones for a second day in a row. The Ukrainians are striking back. You have to watch the movie? I have to watch it? Alright. I'll look into it. So, drones are falling in Moscow. Things are hurting. Have you heard about the Muffin Man? Russian electronic warfare EV system has begun to effectively combat drones of Ukrainian armed forces. They cause enemy drones to go blind, lose the ability to navigate, and fall before reaching the target. The Russians jammed the wireless signal that connected the drones to the satellite. They rely on navigation, causing the vehicles to lose their way and crash to the ground, said an engineer from a German company that supplied the drones to Ukraine to the Ukrainian armed forces. It is clarified that the electronic warfare system of Russian armed forces seriously embedded the operation of missiles with a GPS guidance system, UAVs, and radio communication. So the Russian electronic warfare EV system has begun to effectively combat drones of Ukrainian armed forces. That is interesting. Kind of like the laser beam, but kind of like a mid-flight EMP, small scale EMP. Well, it's not a bomb. It's like a laser guided EMP that could take out guidance systems of drones. That's. I mean, I don't know if that's a lie. Russians could be telling us one thing and the other thing. That's usual Russia shit. Oh no, not Russia, right? Yeah. Oh no, Russia. Anyways, I can't believe they targeted Russia. Oh my god, I can't believe it. I'm so sad about it. I'm really. I mean, have you guys? Don't you know how sad I am about that stuff? All right. Well, I think I have the latest developments of. Well, we go over that, but I wanted to give you this as well. These are inactive indicated or whatever estimated of Russian combat losses as of November 19th, according to the armed force of Ukraine. So a lot of troop numbers today: 1,190 troops, 25 APVs, 29 vehicles and fuel tanks, 13 tanks, 18 artillery system, 29 UAVs. That's a lot. 2 MLRS, 6 special equipment, and 2 anti-aircraft warfare. Nice. That's a lot, though. I mean, the APV scene, look at that. 25 APVs. That's a lot. So, 1,190 troops today alone. That's impressive. Teenagers who has been deported to Russia from Mariupol come back to Ukraine. Wow.
By the Royal Marines, while Kyiv's forces are holding out against large Russian assaults.
All right, we got something here I think you're going to find interesting. Analyzing what Ukraine-Dnieper breakthrough could mean for the war. In the south around the city of Kherson, a senior Ukrainian official said the Ukrainian troops had made a breakthrough, crossing the Dnieper River and establishing the bridgeheads on the opposite bank. This is something we've talked about. I've said it. We were some of the first ones to come out and say it, and that they were there. Or at least I thought they were, and we've been confirmed lately. Forces... The funny thing is, because I did say that, because 500,000 is warming up for the works. Sad. Yeah, it is. But... The funny thing is, because way before they did the operation, I remember talking about, I saw them actively working on boats, right? And I said, it could be a reality that the Ukrainians are going to start using boats to make major operations, or at least some kind of operations. They did it. I said they were going to attack in Crimea. They did it in Crimea. Then I also said that very likely they could cross the Dnipro into Kherson. I'm pretty sure that's what I said. But I was monitoring the factor that they were starting to use a lot more boats. So I said that, and I said maybe that's what they're doing, and now they're actually doing it. So I just think it's amazing. So I want to watch this right here.
Of all the battles taking place in Ukraine, it's the one we know least about, and it almost certainly involves these men, Ukrainian Marine infantry trained in Britain by the Royal Marines. While Kyiv's forces are holding...
Okay, so these guys are trained by the Royal Marines. Now, Royal Marines and the United States Marines, who comes out on top? It's hard to say. I think the United States Marines, they're a bit tougher, but we'll be honest. I mean, Royal Marines are a force to be reckoned with. Just want to say that.
Out against large Russian assaults in places like Avdiivka and Bakhmut. Down here, around the city of Kherson, there's a much smaller and more mysterious operation underway. A push, albeit a small one, southwards towards Crimea, the occupied peninsula that Vladimir Putin prizes the most. The Russians captured Kherson at the start of the war, but in November last year, Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu announced they were withdrawing, and around 30,000 Russian troops crossed to the western bank of the Dnieper River. from where they've continued to shell the city. Ukrainian forces have made repeated forays across, seizing small islands and carrying out hit-and-run attacks. But what's underway now seems at least to be far more substantial. It began in mid-October when units of Marines crossed to the eastern bank. Since then, they've established 3 or 4 bridgeheads in the marshland. And despite the threat of drone strikes...
So, bridgehead, if you don't know what bridgeheads is usually like what you do if you were making a beach landing. You'd make a landing, dig down, take out forces nearby, make sure that you have secured the area in a certain way that could make way for an actual landing of the army or troops or equipment or stuff like that. Kind of like a way to secure landing of other materials or people.
Strikes and artillery, they quickly moved reinforcements across the river, sending over hundreds of men and some heavy equipment.
There you have it.
The thought to now control these areas marked in yellow, stretching from the Antonivsky Bridge just north of Kherson up to Krinky. In places, the Marine units have pushed 4 kilometers inland. So why is this so important? Well, Ukraine's counteroffensive hasn't brought the big gains Kyiv and its western backers had hoped for. Even the country's commander-in-chief, Valery Zaluzhny, has called it a stalemate. There's a growing feeling Kyiv's decided it's now time to consolidate, defend and rearm until the time is right to try again. So are these bridgeheads near Kherson the start of a move south or a feint to pull forces away from other fights? The Russians have been forced to redeploy.
No, it was always, I think, the plan for them to push into Kherson as a way of making a beach landing that could push forces back, and not only push forces back, but force the Russians to take forces from the Andivika area or the Bakhmut theater or the Zaporizhzhia theater. However, again, that's the problem with the Russians. Gotta run. All right, see you later. Ocean, see you later. That's the problem with the Russians. They have more. Right? They don't have better quality, but they have more. And they have more men. And they have the abilities to pull some of those men that used to be at that Navika front down without it making too much difference. That's where I think the Ukraine may have miscalculated. However, it was an important step in the Ukrainian advancements for future operations. It has maybe become a stalemate, but I think it would not be a stalemate if they had the F-16s. I think if they had the F-16s that could help them provide actual air cover, it would not have been a stalemate. I think the only reason why Ukraine's not moving forward at a rapider speeds or bigger speeds is because of that F-16 problem.
Units from elsewhere, including Orokhiv and Avdiivka, to reinforce their defences along the Dnieper. For Kyiv, that might be the only aim. Then again, could this be the start of a breakout, a final push, before winter proper sets in? Western officials say it's not clear how much heavy armour the Ukrainians have managed to move across, but on an increasingly frozen front line, for Kyiv what's happening here is a glint of hope. A successful amphibious landing, the most difficult and dangerous of military operations, and one the Russians so far have been unable to repel. Simon Newton, Forces News.
It's working. You know, it's not like it's not working.
Thanks for watching. For more from Forces News...
No, it's not like it's not working. It is working. You know? 100% it's working. Latvian Foreign Minister Crimea wants to become the next NATO Secretary General. Bloomberg. Okay. I mean, yeah. Good God. But there you have it. That's pretty much a sum of what's happening in the left bank there, at least. No, I'd actually say no, but I don't know. According to intelligence we have in our hands, concrete intelligence, Hamas terrorists took Naria to Al-Shafir Hospital where she was murdered quickly. Hamas murdered Noah inside the Shafir Hospital, IDF said earlier. Good morning. Okay. Well, not a lot of new news coming out. Jesus Christ. Oh, look at that. It's snowing in Novakakov, left bank Kherson, according to this video posted online. So actually, in the area where the Ukrainians are pushing right now, which is the left bank, which we were talking about, we just heard about it. It is actually snowing right now.
Володя вроде говорил, что снега не
It's
будет.
put by Russians, I think.
Не навалит.
Or Ukrainian citizens or something like that. Oh, no, that's left bank, right? So that's left bank, right? That's Ukrainian held, right? Yeah. Snow, snow, snow. Report of heavy shelling near the Indonesian hospital. Alright. That was 18 hours ago. It was quite a long time ago, actually. We have it. Ukraine air defense destroys nearly 10 Russian targets over Kyiv and its outskirts. Very well, very well. SBU sniper kills soldiers from a distance of 3.8 kilometers. That was a new record set yesterday. Yeah. Russian shells 11 communities. I was like communists. Communities in Sumy Oblast, injuring 2. Artillery attacks in the settlements of Sinop Novohorodetsky, something like that. Left two residents wounded. No additional information was provided on the status of the victims. Well, fuck Russians, right? Fuck the commies. That's what I say. Fuck the commies. Alright, latest intelligence update. We get that one. The Ministry of Defense from the British Ministry of Defense. We have that one. That one I like. Alright, let's read that. Russia is likely considering bringing the Soviet-era M55 Mystique B high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft back into service with an operating ceiling of 70,000 feet. The aircraft has been recently employed as an Earth science research platform. However, it's been observed carrying a military reconnaissance pod developed by employment on Russian fighter aircraft. Well, I mean, 70,000 feet is up where the Ukrainians can't really target them, right? So, god damn it. I mean, that's the M55, kind of like the what was that? Kind of like the what's that spy plane called? What's your American spy plane called? The U-2. There we have it, the U-2, right? That was kind of like that one in the Soviet era, right? But I guess so. A critical flaw in Russian procurement strategy has been its failure to establish. Well, there's a word I can't. I think it's. I don't know. Intelligence service surveillance target. I'm not okay. I'm Danish. English is not my first language, but okay, those two words right there. Can't do that right there. Intelligence surveillance reconnaissance. You can read that. Sorry. ISTAR capabilities. This is critical for the timely and accurate prosecution of targets by air, sea, and ground forces. Okay. This is a realistically possibility that the M55s will return at a quote. I don't know what that is. Will return to frontline service to bolster Russian limited ISTAR capabilities over Ukraine. Operating at high altitude enables the sensor to work considerably standoff range. It is almost certain that the aircraft will conduct missions against Ukraine from relatively safety of Russian airspace. Yeah. Well, that would suck for the Ukrainians. I mean, that's, but again, fuck the Russians. Alright, fuck the Russians.
I love your ears. I love them. They're really cool. What's your name? Catherine. Catherine, what a beautiful name. That's my mommy's name. Well, nice to see. How old are you? 17? 6. Thank you.
That's. How old are you? 17? I wish.
Thank you. and I love your ears.
Those
I
are
love
hard
them.
ones.
They're
I
really cool. What's your name? Catherine, what a beautiful name. That's my mommy's name. Well, nice to see. How old are you, 17? 6. Thank you. And
Well, I think that's one of the less creepy moments I've seen of Joe Biden. More of a sweet moment, but it's certainly... The worst part when he said, oh, how old are you? 17? Like, that's, yeah. If the war in Ukraine is frozen, Russia will have 6 years to prepare its troops for a direct conflict with NATO. One likely reason could be a Russian attack on the Baltic countries. The German Society for Foreign Policy, DGAP, conducted its study of Russian military potential. This potential is higher than it appears now, even after almost 2 years of war in Ukraine. The ground forces suffered the greatest losses in manpower and equipment. Experts believe Moscow will quickly build up its military capabilities, and NATO countries have between 5 and 9 years to do the same build-up to prevent conflict. So military experts, right, believe that NATO countries have between, and this is if it becomes a standstill in Ukraine, right, that NATO countries have between 5 and 9 years to build up their armies in a considerate way, like the Russians are, to actually be able to fight, so we can fight against the Russians if they do decide to attack us. Holy shit. I mean, yeah. I mean, that at that point, you know, people say, oh, that's not World War III, but if the Russians attacked NATO, a chain reaction would happen, you know, but it would also be standing alone. But I believe that Russia attacks NATO, North Korea would attack South Korea, and China would leap on Taiwan. They have, I mean, there's no other choice. There's no better time for anybody to do anything like it, you know. So, yeah. Yeah, but that's of course still far-fetched stuff, you know. Not a thing that's gonna happen tomorrow, but they are saying it's probable, unlikable to happen eventually. So there you have it. All right, well, I'm gonna give you Zelensky here. He's gonna give you the latest 6 minutes here. He's gonna give you the latest of his things. I'll be honest with you. Lately, I wouldn't say he looks tired. He's probably just tired right now because it was late recording this, but he has looked a bit more stressed lately. And I you know, this is not me trying to point anything out, right? But I get where you're under war, you're under a lot of pressure, you're going to look tired eventually. But I will say it's probably been a lot of pressure. And a lot of that pressure comes because of the West continuously being pussies and being so fucking annoying, you know, being weak in their knees and not delivering what he needs. Much of that's probably coming from that, and I'll be honest with you, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні є важливе кадрове рішення. За поданням міністра оборони змінив командувача медичних сил Збройних сил України. Замість генерал-майора медичної служби Тетяни Остащенко новим командувачем призначив генерал-майора медичної служби Анатолія Казмірчука, начальника Національного військово-клінічного центру Головний військовий клінічний госпіталь у місті Києві. Завдання очевидне, і про це неодноразово говорилося в суспільстві, зокрема в спільноті наших бойових медиків. Потрібен принципово новий рівень медичного забезпечення наших воїнів. Від якісних турнікетів до повної цифровізації та прозорості постачання, від якісного тренування до щирої комунікації з бойовими медиками у тих підрозділах, де медицина розгорнута дійсно правильно та дійсно ефективно. Досвід ефективності конкретних підрозділів має бути поширений на всі сили оборони. Сьогодні на зустрічі з міністром оборони Умєровим визначили пріоритети. І часу, щоб чекати результат, багато не буде. Рух у змінах потрібен швидкий. Друге, на сьогодні продовжуємо готуватись до запланованих міжнародних подій цього тижня. Буде важлива активність, нова комунікація з нашими партнерами. Ключове зараз – це гарантії того, що підтримка України буде достатньою. І наступного року також. Я дякую всім країнам, які розглядають це так само, як і ми. Потрібен цей сигнал у бік Росії, що вони не робили, світ не втомиться захищати свободу та міжнародний порядок. Я хочу відзначити сьогодні Нідерланди. Цього тижня уряд Нідерландів передбачив на наступний рік понад 2 мільярди євро переважно безпекової підтримки України. Дякую тобі, Марку, пане прем'єр-міністре, та усьому суспільству Нідерландів. Це вчасний сигнал. Важливо відчувати, що захист свободи спирається на надійну і щиру підтримку. Ще одне. Кожен тиждень, який ми проходимо у цій війні, у такому захисті нашої незалежності, це час, коли тисячі українців проявляють найкраще, що є в характері, найсильніше, що є в людях. Коли ми кажемо про єднання у захисті України, ми завжди говоримо не про щось абстрактне, а про цілком конкретні речі. Про те, як люди роблять те, що повинні, те, що належить робити, те, що підтримує інших. Зрештою, дозволяє Україні стояти, дозволяє битись, відповідати ворогу, досягати успіху в боях, посилення нашої держави, збереження життя. І сьогодні я хочу відзначити працівників ДСНС України, тих, хто щодня рятує, тих, хто ризикує своїм життям, тих, хто був поранений російськими обстрілами. Увесь колектив ДСНС дякую. Особливо сержант Владислав Дордій, майстер-сержант Олексій Сущевський, головний сержант Олексій Шабаль, пожежні рятувальники, які працюють в Запорізькій області, були поранені цієї середи при наданні допомоги в селі Зарічне. Хлопці, бажаю вам швидкого одужання. Вдячні за вашу службу. Донецька область. Рятувальники, які особливо проявили себе в допомозі людям після російського удару по місту Селидове. Сержант Артур Тараненко, капітан Віктор Карташов. Дякую. Херсонська область. Сержанти Олександр Частухін, Євгеній Тищик, майор Сергій Коваленко неодноразово залучалися до ліквідації наслідків російських ударів, завжди роблять все можливе, щоб врятувати якнайбільше людей. Молодці. Хлопці, просто молодці. Я вам дуже-дуже дякую. І, звичайно, українські медики, усім вам дякую. Особливо відзначу Тетяну Гурцьку, завідувачку Гуляйпільського відділення екстреної медичної допомоги, та Олександра Ілленка, лікаря-анестезіолога Запорізької станції екстренки. Спасибі вам. Херсон, лікар-хірург Володимир П'ятигорець лише за цей тиждень прооперував 16 пацієнтів з мінно-вибуховими травмами. Та Микола Степанюк, виїзний фельдшер Херсонської екстренки, активно працює, активно допомагає, активно рятує людей. Я дякую вам, вашим колегам, які так само активні і небайдужі. Окремо хочу подякувати кожному і кожній, чия небайдужість та ефективність допомагає нам повертати в Україну дітей, які були викрадені з окупованої території. Сьогодні нам вдалося повернути в Україну Богдана Єрмохіна, хлопця, який був вивезений з Маріуполя в Росію. Багато було спроб йому допомогти. Я радий, що усе спрацювало. Дякую всій команді, яка працює над поверненням українських дітей. Це і Офіс, і омбудсмен, наші міжнародні партнери, зокрема ЮНІСЕФ. Особливо я вдячний Катару за дієве посередництво і допомогу. Дякую про усіх наших людей. Ми пам'ятаємо про кожен куточок України, який зараз в окупації. Ми пам'ятаємо і кожному, хто в бою, хто на бойових постах, хто тренує, допомагає, хто готується до бою. Я дякую. Авдіївка, Мар'їнка, увесь наш схід, південні напрямки, Мелітопольський, Херсонщина. Слава усім, хто захищає Україну, хто захищає незалежність, хто дбає про людей, щиро старається усіх нас зміцнити. Слава Україні!
And the fist up at the end there. Yeah! Hoorah!
Бажаю здоров'я.
Slava Ukraine.
Посмотрите, что творится у нас. Ой.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Almost like karma just came back. This is how bad of a condition most Russian cities are in. Krasnoyarsk in Russia. He's in Russia. Uh-oh, is your roof gone? Oh no, that's not good. Your roof's gone. Can't live without a roof. It's gonna be a bad winter. It's gonna be a bad winter without a roof. Oh, it's gonna be a real bad winter without that roof there. Gonna have a lot of water on top of that. It's not gliding off anymore. You better bring out some buckets, because that's gonna leak. That's gonna leak. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Russian occupiers' authorities cannot ensure proper heating season in occupied part of Kherson Oblast. Oh no. Well, that's something we probably knew, right? War understanding has locked on. Oh, Tristan Tate. And you gotta know who Tristan Tate is. Absolute legends, please give them a follow and love. The war understanding is locked on, and then Tristan Tate, who is a famous man for being quite controversial, right? Those Toyotas are going to come up against T14s and become the tombs of those driving them. First of all, I don't know where you found a T14. Because if you find a T14, which would describe a tank made in 1914, well then please show me the tank that was made in 1914 when no tanks existed. Please show me that tank. Second off, if anything close to what you're mentioning is what? The T-34, which is the closest model to what you're mentioning, was made in 1930. You're telling me that that's the tank you're pointing out. So no understanding. These are the people. They have no understanding of what anything is, right? And they also think that these cars right here would be the tanks, would be the cars they would drive out towards the tank with. Like, oh, look at that, that's a tank. Let's drive our car towards it. Like, you know, like, oh, look at that, that's a tank. Let's drive our non-armored car towards the tank and see what happens. You know, that's not exactly use of a troops transport. You usually have armored vehicles to transport them if there's a tank or if there's anything. You know, if you're at an active battlefield, you don't usually drive around, you know, in an active battlefield with a fucking Toyota, but, you know, whatever. You know, everybody keeps saying, oh, these guys are so smart, you know. Really? I'm sure it was a mistake. I just don't know exactly what tank he meant. You know. And also, what a terrible thing to say, you know? What a terrible thing to just come out and say, these tanks right here are gonna be these tanks right here, you know, these Toyotas are gonna be the tomb of a Ukrainian soldiers. That's, you know, what a terrible thing to come out and say, you know. But yeah. I think some of the earliest tanks that the Russians made were made in 1920, which, you know, and they weren't called T-20, you know, or T-21. No, they called it the T-34 because it was made in T-34. You know, it was made in 1944, you know. No, not 1944. 1934. Making me mess up. Well, the variant of it was made. I don't know, 1937 to 1940. Designed between 1937 and 1940. There you have it. Yeah. Designed between 1937 and 1940. So it was in the 30s. Didn't get it complete down. I think some of the first models came out in 1934, made by, I think it was an Austrian. I'm not extra sure. I think it was some story I've just recently heard about it, that he was put in charge of making the tank, and then I don't know. But I recently, it's a funny thing because I just watched a documentary on tanks and I literally forgot within days of it. But whatever. Russian claim to have shut down drone near Moscow. Well, of course you have.
You know, you guys had a 10-point lead, about 8.5 minutes left. What do you think the difference was down the stretch?
I mean, when you give up 43 points in the fourth quarter, it's going to be a tough one. We did a good job coming out of halftime with that energy and verve that we normally have.
Jesus Christ. I want to watch something. That was not okay. I know what you think when you heard that sound, but that was not that was not okay. I was watching this, and the guy said that. Such a ridiculous thing. I thought we could watch this together. I don't know. It's like a half an hour of watching. It's like World War III, hour by hour. I thought we could watch it. I don't know. I don't really have anything more. I don't have anything. I mean, right now I'm waiting if there comes any news about the about anything about the ship that was taken, but right now there's not really anything else. I mean, I've pretty much gone through latest developments and all kinds of things, and there's a ceasefire tomorrow in Gaza if you haven't heard. But yeah, I thought we could watch this. I mean, I don't know if you want.
This video is sponsored.
Sponsorship. All right, Conflict of Nations World War. There you have it. That's the sponsorship. We'll move on from that.
The massive fleet is a mix of military and civilian ships, including commercial ports along the eastern Chinese coast. The massive fleet is a mix of military and civilian ships, including commercial ferries with reinforced ramps to allow them to on and offload heavy military vehicles. This first wave of invaders is 35,000 strong, and many more tens of thousands of soldiers are waiting.
That's one of the things people are talking about. When this scenario is, people always say that there isn't any other scenario for World War III to start unless China was to invade Taiwan, because then it would be the direct conflict between China and the United States, which are the two superpowers or close superpowers. China's not really a superpower, right? But I do think that Russia attacking NATO would be a case of World War III, but or at least a large-scale conflict.
Waiting for their turn to make the 100-mile journey to Taiwan. Chinese frigates scour the waters of the Taiwan Strait on the hunt for American or Taiwanese submarines. A formal declaration of war against Taiwan is being declared as the ships cut through the waves. And though no declaration of war against the United States is prepared, it's fully expected that the United States will honor its commitment to defend Taiwan from invasion. Any sub in the Taiwan Strait that doesn't belong to the People's Liberation Army
very
Navy
informal too,
will be
guys.
considered hostile and
This
fired.
is not fiction, by the way. The rest of what they may make may be fiction, but it's going off war simulations. Therefore, I think it's pretty good. Also, this is not fiction right here. This is what may lurk around those codes of Taiwan.
Fired upon. A world away, Russian forces staging out of Belarus and the Western Military District.
See,
launched
that's a funny thing right there, because I just mentioned that earlier. They would do the same. If they were to launch, and they would do the same. They would do it at the same time, same minute, you know?
an offensive into the Baltic countries. The featureless, flat plains of Eastern Europe are perfect tank country and favor the attacker, with few natural features to build defenses on. Overhead, a barrage of missiles preempts the crossing of Russian troops into NATO territory. Hundreds of ballistic and cruise missiles fly across Eastern Europe, aimed at NATO airfields, supply depots, and troop staging areas. Aegis ashore facilities and other anti-missile defenses begin to light up the sky with their own counterfire. The average success rate of missile defense systems averages between 50 and 60%, but that still means over 100 missiles find their targets, cratering airfields, destroying fuel depots, and killing hundreds on the ground. But NATO hasn't been...
Oh, shit. Javier Milei wins Argentinian presidential election. That's the guy that was waving around a chainsaw. Oh, he wins. He won. Well, he's the new president of Argentina. This man right here. So, yeah. Well, now we know.
Blind to the buildup of military troops by Russia, and the moment the first wave of missile strikes are detected and still in the air, NATO responds accordingly. The skies are so crowded with missiles for a few minutes that it's unsafe for NATO or Russia's combat air patrols to operate in the region, and they take to low altitude for safety. NATO's missiles have better precision than Russia's missiles, but Russian missile defenses are slightly more effective than NATO's. In the Pacific, China launches nearly 600 missiles in the span of an hour, the largest missile barrage in human history. These missiles target Taiwan's military and civilian airfields, hangars, command and control nodes, and electric power plants. However, a significant number of them also target American air bases in Guam, Japan, and South Korea. American and Taiwanese missile defenses put up a brave fight, but the overwhelming fire is too much, and many of the missiles find their marks. Guam is cratered by ballistic missile strikes, and America's largest military base in the Pacific is temporarily knocked out of commission. Thousands die on the ground. Further missile attacks target American naval vessels operating in the Pacific. China has needed 4 months to prepare its amphibious assault fleet, giving the world plenty of time to prepare for the coming war. The U.S. now operates 4 carrier groups in the Pacific, with a 5th in reserve along the American west coast, as American satellites detect the start of the...
America! America right here. And the factor is, America, who have interest in Taiwan, okay? America has interest in Taiwan. They will not let Taiwan be taken. Why? Because if Taiwan gets taken, China controls 60% of all chips not eating chips, but microchips. The things you need to produce and to make military equipment. They would control 60% of all of that, which means, by the way, that China would be in direct control of who gets to build what, and you would have to be a good friend of China to be able to build anything. Just saying. Anything happening back here? No.
Chinese attack, a warning is sent across the entire American Pacific Fleet. The carriers now move at full speed, taking random and aggressive turns, all in an attempt to throw off the targeting of China's missiles. American cyber and electronic warfare operations, however, are already underway. Targeting China's recon and targeting assets, they succeed in degrading the accuracy of China's missiles, but the sheer number of them still makes them a serious threat. As the missiles re-enter the atmosphere at several thousand miles an hour...
This is the new president of Argentina. Oh, he's a man of the people. He's a man of the people. Actually, it was not because he's insane. He did it because, I believe it's because the Argentinians had they cut the budgets, they cut they cut everything and people weren't happy, and therefore he brought a chainsaw to demonstrate the cutting of their you know, whatever, spending or whatever. We build chip plants here, so we have one going up in Ohio. Well,
American missile
as of so far, right? And yeah, China may just be willing to wait for America to have their own chips to see if America would be interested in actually fighting for Taiwan, which is the funny thing, right?
Fences put up a wall of lead and steel with.
Well, he's actually not that much of a clown, which you may think he is, but people actually like him, and he may be less of an idiot that we think he is. I think he's very extreme. I mean, he's quite extreme, right? And but you know.
Escort cruisers knocking out Chinese missiles with their own SM-3 missiles. When the smoke clears, one American carrier has been sunk. 2 have been seriously damaged.
And that's the funny thing. For some reason, every time we run war simulations with China, right? If we run like any war simulation, for some reason, but America always loses one aircraft carrier or a carrier. This was a carrier, right? But an aircraft carrier. For some reason, they say that they always lose at least one aircraft carrier. For some reason.
Suffered only minor damage. Many of the carrier group escorts, however, are severely damaged or sunk. The U.S. Navy has just experienced the largest single-day loss of life in its history. Hour 2. On the ground in Eastern Europe, Russian forces are making contact with the first line of NATO defenses. The NATO Rapid Response Force has dug in best as it can along the eastern flank of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. But the flat ground doesn't give much defensive advantage to NATO. NATO tanks are on the whole.
Enlisted is the free brand new online World War II shooter. Command a squad of soldiers and participate.
More modern and more capable than Russian tanks, thanks to crippling sanctions imposed on Russia after its annexation of Crimea in 2014. And
also, this video was uploaded a year ago, so this is uploaded during the Ukrainian invasion.
Sanctions in 2022 after its invasion of Ukraine. Other than destroying the Russian economy, the blockade of computer chips from major manufacturers such as Taiwan have been a devastating blow to a military already suffering from worn-out and poorly maintained equipment. This has had a cascading effect across the Russian military, as much of the smart tech of modern militaries relies heavily on computer components, which Russia is now forced to manufacture domestically. Everything from modern anti-tank missiles to air-to-air missiles and even fire control radar have a limited reserve supply and must be applied judiciously. The T-72 still makes the bulk of Russian forces, though in preparation for war several thousand Cold War-era tanks have been activated. These tanks suffer from serious deficiencies against modern weapons and are largely used as cannon fodder by the Russians. Scores of T-55s, T-62s, and T-64s smash into NATO defenses, soaking up anti-tank.
I want to tell you something about the T-55. T-55A and the T-55 was actually made during the 60s. Sorry, 50s. The reason why they call it T-55, right? And the one thing about the T-55 was, the funny thing about that was that it was actually made during the time of when, you know, nuclear waste was on the verge and everybody thought that, you know, we were gonna go to war and all that just bullshit, right? And then everybody thought that, you know, if we're gonna go to war, we have to build a tank that can actually survive fighting in nuclear war. So they built the variants of the T-55 to be able to fight in nuclear war. It has air filtration. Most tanks nowadays have the same, but the Soviets thought to themselves that they needed to build a tank that could actually fight in nuclear war. That's the funny thing about the T-55 there.
While more modern T-72s, T-80s, and T-90s mop up exhausted defenders, casualties are horrendous for the Russians, but they have plenty of outdated equipment to throw into the fight. NATO's tanks are far more capable than most Russian tanks, but they're also more expensive and significantly fewer in number. The United States is still in the process of shipping the bulk of its armored forces to Europe, but it'll be several weeks yet before significant amounts of American armor is ready for combat. For now, Europe must hold the line long enough for the U.S. to bring its full firepower into the fight, assisted, of course, by a few thousand advanced American forces stationed in Europe. Combat in the air is just as intense on the ground, Within minutes of the war's start, both sides' air forces took to the skies. Russian MiGs are capable aircraft, but again facing serious modernity problems from a lack of funding. However, while the Russian army has a reputation earned in Ukraine for poor tactics, communications, and performance, the Russian Air Force remains a competent and credible threat to NATO. Both sides are unable to bring the full power of their air forces to bear against each other. For NATO planes, the threat comes...
Unfortunately, he's somewhat right. And it's true, actually. They do still pose a threat to us. Air defense wise, they still have bombers, they still have planes that can cope with some of the modern technology. However, the tanks that they do have, the planes that they do have compared to any F-16s is quite outdated. So that's something, you know.
From Russia's numerous air defense batteries, which operate close to the front lines and can even threaten NATO planes from within Russia's borders. The S-400 system ranks among the best air defense systems in the world and is lethal to NATO's 4th and 4.5 generation fighters. At immediate and close range, numerous self-propelled air defense guns shore up S-400 and older S-300 defenses. NATO, on the other hand, relies heavily on...
So that's gone right off Western intelligence right there. That they rank the best, some of the best in the world, S-400 and S-300. However, Ukraine, a country that hasn't necessarily produced any air defense of their own, they didn't have any modern military, they have gotten modern equipment, have been able to take out many S-400 air defense systems despite being ranked the best in the world. I'm just saying.
Shore up S-400 and older S-300 defenses. NATO, on the other hand, relies heavily on fighters and interceptors for air defense, whom themselves are at risk from Russian ground-based defenses. However, NATO enjoys one distinct advantage over Russia: the F-35 stealth fighter and America's fleet of F-22 air supremacy fighters. Unfortunately, only a few hundred F-35s are capable of combat operations across the NATO alliance, and most of these are from the United States. The vaunted F-22, the most capable air supremacy fighter in the world, is also in very low numbers, and most of them are being diverted to bases in the Pacific.
See, that's the problem. That's the problem we have. America has a lot, but it takes a while to get to Europe. Europeans, because we've been lazy, because we are lazy, we don't build planes of our own. We don't build tanks of our own. We don't do all the things that we need to do to be able to defend ourselves. We don't do that. You know? Because we just think that we go along dazzling around the world and having a good time and throwing around peace signs, that everything will be fine and we won't be able to defend our citizens, but it's all good. You know, it doesn't matter if we're able to defend 5 million or 400 million people against Russian attacks. No, it doesn't matter, because, well, that's just cannon fodder, right? We could just go around, say peace sign everywhere and say that we won't have to fight because blah blah blah, right? So putting 4 fucking million people at risk. How many live in Europe? How many people live in Europe, right? Over a billion. Not a billion. I was saying the first time. 448 million people live in Europe. So, point being, we're putting 448 million people's lives at risk, including babies, children, because we have been too lazy to build our own defenses, to build our own equipment, because we have, again, as I mentioned, been too lazy. We don't put our defense up first because we think that America is going to do it for us. That's ridiculous. America can help us. America is our ally. We are also America's ally. However, if America was to fight, the only people that were able to be able to help America here would either be Britain, South Korea, and Japan, right? And everybody else down here. Now, I mean, they have allies, but we're not going to go over here. You know, Europe don't have capabilities to sail across to the Pacific and help them out. We have maybe a country like Denmark. We have 7 ships. Like, how are we going to fight a war for 7 ships? You know, we have so little amount of actual equipment and things that we could fight a war with that it's ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous. Okay, and they're putting people's lives at risk because they don't want to build equipment. They don't want to actually do the things that they need to do to be able to defend us. Okay? They don't want to build the things they need to do. They're being too lazy. We're talking about millions of lives, okay? Millions of lives going to risk because the countries and the leaders of our countries have been lazy and lazy and lazy for too fucking long. And it's fucking true, okay? It's true. I don't care what you say, it's true.
For sea and air war against China. Entire fleets of American aircraft are already making the Atlantic crossing with the aid of tanker planes. But
that's why
it'll
Russia
be a
is still a
day
threat
or two
to some
yet
point.
before they're ready for combat ops.
Right?
Europe's lack of stealth fighters means they can't safely operate near the front lines, temporarily giving the air advantage to Russia. Russia presses that advantage as best it can. But carrying out strike missions over the front lines is still hazardous business for its air force. Russian bombers devastate NATO defenses, but take casualties of their own. Long-range standoff attacks via air-launched cruise missiles keep Russian pilots out of harm's way. NATO responds with its own long-range strikes, but for now, the air over the front belongs to Russia.
You read it earlier today. German experts and military experts around the world has already stated that if Russia was to go to a standstill now in Ukraine, it would only take them 6 years to build what they've lost in Ukraine. Should I put up the list of what they've lost in Ukraine? Huh? This is why Russia still is a threat to some extent. They have capabilities, okay? Look at this. They would be able to replace 10,000 APVs, 10,000 fuel trucks. They would be able to, in 6 years, build 5,000 tanks, 7,000 artillery systems, 5,000 UAVs, 898 MRS, 1,000 special equipment, 500 anti-aircraft, and that's, you know, to rebuild. But that's also to further rebuild, okay? And they may not be able to build it with the same quality, but they will be able to build something. So, but in Europe, you know, then we would have to go back to our, you know, oh, we're going to start building our own things, right? Yeah. But who's building it for us? America is. So when are we going to get our things back? Well, we're not going to get those back until 20 years because America has to build them for us. This is not me going against America. This is me going against Europe, saying that we're too fucking lazy because we should be able to build our own stuff. Okay?
Attack helicopters from both sides fight ground defenses and each other all across the front. It'll take time yet for NATO to gather its forces, and the numbers advantage is once more in Russia's favor. Still, both sides suffer heavy losses of air cavalry to man-portable air defense weapons and traditional air defenses both. As the second hour of World War III comes to a close, a massive offensive out of the military enclave of Kaliningrad pushes into NATO defenses in southern Lithuania. Further cruise and ballistic missile.
Please welcome an absolutely new Crossout, a free-to-play multiplayer action game about battles and cool
attacks rain out of Kaliningrad and into it from NATO return fire. The overwhelming amount of NATO firepower aimed at Kaliningrad quickly shuts down any hope of conducting air operations out of the enclave. But it's still a strong point of tens of thousands of Russian troops in armor who are manning defenses along the Polish border, while a separate thrust north into Lithuania seeks to destroy NATO forces there. Russia's hope is to sever NATO from the Baltic countries, and there's little the alliance can do to prevent that at the moment. Hour 3. In the Pacific, the Chinese Navy has begun the bombardment of the Penghu Islands, silencing naval defenses there. The massive amphibious assault force has crossed most of the Taiwan Strait, and the island fortress nation is now in sight. Overhead, Chinese fighters battle Taiwan's rapidly diminishing
power outage of the power outage. So much stuff going on in the background. I think it's wind. Where do you hear that from? Where'd you hear that from, gamer? I'm not hearing anything about it and power outage. Given the sudden... No, I'm not hearing anything. Yeah, but where did you hear it from? Like, what source? What's your source on it? Do you live there? I mean, is it... If it's a power outage, it's alright. I imagine it's just a power outage. I think you're alright. Well, watch on. I'll look for it, but I don't see it.
Air Force for supremacy, while other strike aircraft carry out SEAD operations, or suppression of enemy air defenses. Taiwan is equipped with very robust air defenses courtesy of America, and they take a heavy toll on the Chinese aircraft. China has over 2,000 combat aircraft, however, and is easily...
Jesus Christ.
...able to absorb the punishment. Lurking under the waves, though, the Chinese fleet runs into a coordinated Taiwanese and American ambush. U.S. and Taiwanese subs have been powered down, lurking silently and awaiting the fleet's approach. And now, with the lead ships in range, they begin to open up on the Chinese Navy. Each submarine acts independently, but with attacks coming from multiple directions, there's little the Chinese ships can do to avoid destruction. Chinese anti-submarine warfare aircraft have been patrolling the strait for hours now, but the Chinese Navy's anti-submarine warfare capabilities have serious deficiencies. Their biggest
it's a city. It's a city.
Problem, though, is that they're up against American Virginia-class submarines and Taiwan's electric diesel boats, both extremely quiet. Multiple Chinese vessels are sunk or heavily damaged, and in the chaos, the invasion fleet spread so as to avoid becoming an easy target. And that's when they run into hundreds of anti-ship mines deployed in advance by the Taiwanese Navy. The cost to the Chinese Navy is staggering, a satisfying payback for the losses the U.S. Navy suffered during China's ballistic missile barrage. But the sheer number of Chinese vessels means the invasion will carry on. Exposed by their attacks, the submarines make for a quick exit from the strait. They won't all make it, as Chinese destroyers and ASW aircraft score several hits. Hour 4. The air battle over Eastern Europe intensifies as both sides continue carrying SEAD operations against each other. For NATO, establishing air dominance is of critical importance, as it's the best way to support outnumbered troops on the ground. Keeping NATO aircraft off the front is just as important for the Russian military to ensure the success of their ground forces. Without air superiority, the advantage is in the Russians' hands. Knowing that they couldn't guarantee the safety of strike aircraft against NATO's technologically advanced military, Russia has placed a focus on ground fire support platforms over air platforms. Russia's infantry is typically supported by far greater amounts of artillery than a comparable NATO unit, allowing them to bring far greater amounts of firepower.
I don't see anything about it. Power outage. I'm sorry. I can't find anything.
To support their advance. In an environment currently lethal to strike aircraft, this gives Russia a sizable advantage at the front. However, this strategy also comes with serious limitations. Russia's forces are unable to exploit openings in the enemy's defenses for fear of outrunning their ground-based fire support and air defenses. As NATO forces
it might have
from the Russian assault and fall.
It might have something to do with the flooding today. I mean, they can fall about 25 millimeters of rain. A lot of rain today. I mean, it was flooding, right? There was warnings of big there was warnings of rain, like very powerful rain, storm kind of rain. A lot of flooding, but other than that, maybe that's why. I don't know.
Back, NATO warplanes patiently wait for any Russian forces foolish enough to advance too quickly for their air defenses to protect. The Ukrainian war highlighted serious command and control issues for the Russian military, and while steps have been taken to correct the problem, Russian forces facing full-on electronic...
Have they though? I mean, they say they've taken steps to correct the problem. Well, let's be honest. They say they've done one thing, usually it's the other thing with Russia.
Warfare from NATO, and often out of contact with leadership for long periods of time, occasionally move out of step with the rest of the advance. Those that do are immediately pounced on by NATO ground strike aircraft, who circle behind the front lines like hungry sharks. The bulk of the Russian force, however, maintains operational integrity, and moves at a predetermined maximum advance rate so as to keep under the protection of their ground-based fire support and air defenses. This makes their advance slow and predictable, though, a fact that the vastly outnumbered NATO forces take full advantage of. Heavily damaged NATO units are able to withdraw and avoid full destruction, allowing them to regroup and redeploy. However, NATO has its own issues. Russian electronic warfare capabilities are wreaking havoc on NATO communications, and the fact that the alliance speaks over 24 different languages create...
What we win eventually. Yeah, I do think we win. I'm just still annoyed the factor that we don't build our own stuff. Like, I feel like listen, would Russia have the capabilities to start with? Maybe, but we would still have the capability of being able to win. Sure. I mean, would we win eventually? Yes, I do think so. I mean, there's no way Russia could win, but,
It's great difficulty coordinating the various components of the NATO Defense Force. English and French are the official languages of NATO, and most senior officers know one or both of them to ensure continuity of operations. But as communications are degraded and casualties mount, a lack of understanding makes it difficult for smaller units to operate together on the battlefield. The alliance is reeling from the onslaught and slowly but steadily losing ground. In the Pacific, American air power has yet to make an entry into the fight over Taiwan. Runways across South Korea, Japan, and even the Philippines face ongoing strikes.
The big demonstrations, I mean, there's a lot of demonstrations. Well, power outages happen. Could it be... is what you worrying about a terrorist attack? Is that what you're worrying about? I mean, I could see that, but, power outages happen. I mean... There's been a lot of raid today, you never know, right? But, sorry, I can't find anything on it. I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that. I can't find anything. Like, I'm literally scrolling through, like, media. I'm just not getting anything, but I'm sure I'm going to get it eventually. So, I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I'm sure I'm going to get it eventually. There has been a hacking attack against EDC. So EDC, which is it was like a real estate company. They've actually been hacked. That's one thing. That was in Denmark. That happened today. I'm not getting that tower outage though. I mean, they usually don't report it though. I mean, maybe I can check it on. Wait, okay.
From long-range Chinese missiles, the attacks have largely grounded air forces in the region, but they've come at a high cost by galvanizing Japan to join the fight. South Korea maintains neutrality despite attacks on 2 U.S. bases in its country.
Jesus Christ.
Country and the death of some South Korean civilians and military personnel in the strikes. They are too preoccupied with a possible North Korean invasion instead. The Philippines remain similarly neutral despite their defense pact with the United States. Wary of joining the U.S. against China, countries all across the South Pacific are delaying their decisions on which side to back, as confidence in a U.S. victory is shaken by the losses incurred by America in the opening hours of the conflict. There's growing doubt that the U.S. will be able to effectively fight off the Chinese assault, as China's Navy and rocket forces keep U.S. forces at bay indefinitely. Backing the U.S. now could have disastrous consequences in a new world order in the Pacific led by China. Australia, however, is full.
This is my point, right? We continue to say that we want to be able to rely on the United States in Europe. However, if we have to rely on the United States in Europe, the United States would have to spread their forces. Now, they did it in World War II. I'll be honest with you. They did it in World War II. However, China and Japan, China is much more powerful now than Japan could have been or ever have been in some ways, more technological. Of course, it did, America have done it before, but I just would be honest with you, I would like it that Europe could be able to defend themselves and then be able to assist America as well. but also that America would have to focus less on Europe and more on the Pacific. Then we could keep the line of fire up.
Committed to its mutual defense pact with the U.S., and its forces prepare for deployment into the South Pacific. However, neither Japan nor Australia undertake any major air operations against China, instead ensuring territorial integrity and patrolling against any Chinese aerial incursion. Despite fears China would attack disputed Japanese islands, though, there is no attack, as the nation's focus is strictly on its pending invasion of Taiwan. Hour 5. Shore-based defenses rain hell on a swarm of Chinese amphibious assault vessels. The battle for Taiwan is on.
Showed they're so
China
good.
has decided to hit 3 different beaches simultaneously, 2 in the north and 1 in the south of the island. Because of the difficult undersea geography and suitability of the island's coast, there are only a few beaches where an amphibious assault is possible, and Taiwan has invested billions in their defense. Chinese forces first hit Gold Beach, the code word for a landing site outside of Taoyuan City. Shore-based batteries and mobile artillery open up on the approaching landing craft. Missiles streak into the sky, targeting the amphibious assault ships and their escorts over a dozen miles offshore. Landing craft and amphibious vehicles are being sunk by the dozens before the first finally makes it to the beach. By the time the first Chinese soldier steps foot on the Taiwanese mainland, 600 of his compatriots have already been killed or drowned. He doesn't fare much better. Almost immediately,
the U.S. Secret Service posted something here. That's the official U.S. Secret Service, right? I mean, I don't know what it is. I think it is. Is that the official one? Probably is. I don't know. But our deepest condolences go out to the Carter family. First Lady Rosalind Carter dedicated her life to helping others with compassion and grace, and was a model for us all. 96 years old, by the way. You know, not a bad age. Not a bad age.
Immediately getting gunned down by a hidden machine gun.
There's a malfunction in the high fault grid right now. We have fitters on the way to find out the fault, says the press guard. That's all to say about it. Is that in Denmark? Okay. All right. Well, then it's probably just a malfunction, as you said. You know. Thank you. Well, I'm surprised you found it and I didn't find it. But I couldn't find it. Honestly, I searched it up. I couldn't find shit. But all right.
A barrage of grenades destroys the landing craft and all the men inside it. But there's many more landing craft coming. Gradually, the lead elements of the assault make successful landfall. But as the bulk of the assault force...
If you notice something about the Chinese and the Russians, listen to what he just said right there. There are many, many more Chinese ships coming. The Chinese don't expect to be able to land their first ships. Listen to what I'm saying. The Chinese don't expect to be able to land their first ships. So the first soldiers of the first line of the ships going into Taiwan, they know are gonna die. Okay? They know they're gonna die. They don't care. They know that the first ships going in would be killed. Okay? Die. Dead. Suicide mission. If you notice anything about that, you know, think about the current situation in Russia and then think about the Chinese tactics. Both China and Russia have worse quality equipment, but they have more of it. That's the problem with these two countries. They have worse quality, but they have more.
Gradually, the lead elements of the assault make successful landfall. But as the bulk of the assault force crosses an invisible line, the ocean suddenly erupts in flames. Hidden along the seafloor are long pipes through which the defenders pump raw oil. The oil floats to the surface before being set on fire, creating a raging inferno that floats along the top of the waves. The heat kills dozens.
Listen to that, by the way. Taiwan, who people say could easily be invaded by China. I don't think Taiwan could resist a Chinese invasion forever. That's impossible. However, they're not going to make it easy, okay? And they've prepared for this for a very fucking long time, okay? If you remember when the Chinese, it was in the 50s, right? When it's 1912, right? So it was founded in 1912. China was founded in 1949. And that was when, well, Taiwan already kind of existed, right? But China the nowadays China, was made in 1949. That was when the People Republic, the flag, this flag right here, which used to be the flag of China, moved to Taiwan and, well, pretty much took over that island, or however you want to say it, and became the real China, as people say.
Of Chinese soldiers, even from inside the protection of their land.
They've pretty much been preparing for a Chinese invasion ever since then. Like, think about that. Think about that. They've pretty much been preparing for a Chinese invasion since the 1950s. So they've had a long time to do it.
Landing crafts, large fan-powered landing ships carrying armored vehicles catch on fire and begin to sink as their rubber skirts deflate. The losses are horrendous, but still the assault keeps coming. Overhead, Chinese strike aircraft do what they can to neutralize the island's defenders, wiping out artillery positions with precision-guided weapons. However, many of these planes don't survive their attack run, blown out of the sky by Taiwan's robust air defenses. But the Chinese military has more planes than Taiwan has air defenses, and inevitably...
Sorry about that.
Enlisted is the free brand.
YouTube's really pushing they're pushing me with these ads right now.
The air defense sites are destroyed.
Listen to that, by the way. China has more planes than what Taiwan has air defense systems. That puts the ratio on.
Destroyed one by one through a combination of missile strikes and bombing runs. Taiwan's best defenses are its mobile defenses, self-propelled artillery, and short-range air defense batteries. These prove difficult to track and pin down and are a deadly threat to scout aircraft trying to sniff them out. Taiwan's own air force rises to the occasion, but it's hopelessly outnumbered. Regardless, the island's defenders continue to put aircraft into the sky, operating from highways as most airfields in the country have now been damaged or effectively shut down. A half hour after the assault on Gold Beach begins, the Chinese open a second front directly north of Taipei. This assault meets with equally intense resistance, and huge Type 72 landing ships with bellies full of tanks and infantry fighting vehicles race to the beach. The second assault forces Taiwan to split its reserves as it rushes to ensure the Chinese can't gain a foothold, but Chinese airstrikes are making it difficult to quickly move troops around. A volley of missiles fly out from the beach and smash into the lead Type 72, causing massive damage to the ship and sinking it. The wrecked ship, heavily laden with troops and equipment, sinks quickly in the shallow water, and a second landing ship runs straight into the wreck, tearing its hull open. It too will sink in less than a minute, creating an...
That's some funny things that infographic does. They sometimes come up with these stories about what's going to happen, right? But I think what they're pointing out here is, think about how much actual military experience does Chinese troops have. Like, the current Chinese troops that you know don't actually have any actual military experience. Neither does the Taiwanese. However, the Chinese haven't been preparing, or haven't been, been preparing to defend their countries for as long as they existed, right? But the Taiwanese have. So you could expect a lot of the Chinese to be quite clumsy at times, maybe, but they don't have a lot of experience. They have never been in a war since 1949. I mean, they were obviously in Korea, so that's a lie. But after Korea, they were some smaller skirmishes, India and blah blah blah, right? But they've not literally have like large scale or combat missions and stuff like that. Pretty much very little current amount of the soldiers have actual combat experience.
An artificial barrier for the ships. Regardless, though, more ships continued the assault, and despite the withering fire, managed to make it to the beach. Ramps at their front open, and the Chinese tanks and IFVs begin to pour out, to immediately be met by a flurry of American-made Javelin anti-tank missiles. Reactive armor on the Chinese tanks tries to deflect the incoming warheads, but are largely unsuccessful against many of the most sophisticated tank-killing weapons in the world.
Watched that. Oh,
and the U.S. has...
Is it the one with the infographic? Is the one that they made? Because I think I watched that. Yeah, the one the infographic made.
Provided thousands to Taiwan in anticipation of this invasion. A dozen miles away, Chinese air assault forces zip toward the coast in assault helicopters. To avoid air defenses, the pilots are flying at just above wave top height, in a daredevil sprint to get past the beaches. The moment they near land, though, they're forced to pull up to clear trees and buildings, which makes them easy targets for shoulder-fired air defense weapons. Numerous Chinese helicopters are blown out of the sky, but many make it to their destination, public squares and large parking lots pre-designated as air assault zones before the invasion. Chinese troops rush to secure defensive positions and
I've watched that, which is really, it's really good. I'll be honest with you, it's better than any Netflix series. Like, it's really good.
across the invasion front and put pressure on the defenders' flanks. Taiwan counters with its mobile reserves, specifically kept out of fighting for just this reason. At several landing sites, Chinese troops are slaughtered as they're quickly overwhelmed, but the Chinese air assault manages to hold on to a few of its landing zones. The surviving assault helicopter fleet is already well on its way to the mainland, and amphibious
quickly overwhelmed. Again, they don't have great military experience. Many of the soldiers going to war only have training. They've only tried training, you know? They don't actually have military experience, which is, you know, many U.S. soldiers that fight or, you know, don't have military, but many people that get called up, which is veterans or reserves, many of those have been to Iraq, they've been to Afghanistan, they've been on tours, which means they have actual combat knowledge, which makes them a million times better. Many of the European, especially from NATO and stuff like that, who've also been in the Middle Eastern theater, also have much better chances of making greater, you know, have much better chance of actually fighting against Russians or enemies like China, because, well, we've simply been to war before. We know what we're doing, you know, or, well, you know.
Assault ships offshore to pick up more reinforcements. Taiwan holds the beaches, but under intense air attack, they'll be unable to fend off the Chinese troops for long. Hour 6. Somewhere deep behind Russian lines, a series of explosions lights up the early morning sky. Critical air defense radar immediately goes offline. More explosions 30 miles away eliminate a Russian command post. Flying at tens of thousands of feet over war-torn Eastern Europe, 2 American B-2s.
Please welcome an absolutely new Crossout, a free-to-play multiplayer action game about battles and cool.
Secretly,
that was a cool intro right there. That was a really cool intro. Like,
able to fend off the Chinese troops for long. Hour 6. Somewhere deep behind Russian lines, a series of explosions lights up the early morning sky.
Is it a bird? No. Is it Superman? No. It's America.
Critical air defense radar immediately goes offline. More explosions 30 miles away eliminate a Russian command post. Flying at tens of thousands of feet over war-torn Eastern Europe, 2 American B-2s secretly forward deployed to Europe make their way back to friendly lines. They've flown a zigzag course to their targets, always presenting their stealthiest side to enemy radar. Russian radar technicians picked up an intermittent contact of something, but were unable to provide a firing solution to air defenses.
They picked up something.
Back to friendly lines, though, the B-2s are slightly more visible to ground than airborne radar, and several interceptors are vectored in on their approximate location. As they near the B-2s, their radars struggle to get a weapons-quality lock, as the B-2s take evasive action and defeat enemy radar by angling away from it. Still, it's only a matter of time before Russian MiGs have sniffed out the general location of the bombers and closed in enough that no amount of stealth technology can prevent a good lock. Suddenly, the lead MiG picks up a missile lock warning. Instinctively, he dives his plane, picking up speed and hoping to confuse the incoming missile with ground clutter. There's more warnings across the fleet of incoming interceptors as the MiGs attempt to scramble. The dividing MiGs desperately try to outmaneuver or outrun the incoming missiles, but the short detection range spells doom for many of the pilots. One by one, MiGs are blown out of the sky, with a few surviving and backing off the vulnerable B-2s. Somewhere in the dawn sky, a formation of American F-35s wheels to cover the B-2s.
I like how they put the sun there, like America. F-35s.
Somewhere in the dawn sky, a formation of American F-35s wheels.
F-35 comes into the screen right there. I like to call it the killer. I like to call it the killer because it's a killer.
To cover the B-2's retreat. They're some of the few operational F-35s NATO has in service, and though deadly to Russian air defenses, are too few in number to significantly alter the air war. The B-2s must also be used judiciously, as they too are few in number to significantly damage Russia's ability to fight. Hour 24. It's been 1 day since the start of the Third World War. The Sino-Russian alliance has pushed NATO back significantly in the Baltic states as America rushes to recall troops on leave and prepare to embark reinforcements to Europe. It'll take weeks for the U.S. to be ready for ground operations, even with the world's largest logistical fleet preparing.
Think about that. You know, it takes weeks to get ready. When America, to start with, had to get to North Africa, they actually had to make landings right here. It took them 6 months to get ready. They weren't ready. America, who was pretty much at the time verging on superpowerness, you know, such amazing, you know, abilities they had, but they simply, you know, they take a while to get ready because they have to get across that sea. They're not in Europe. They have to get across the sea. It took them 6 months to even get ready for North Africa. And, you know, it took them equal the amount of time to get ready for Europe. And it took them longer than that. And it took them time to get over towards the Pacific. You know, they have to get across the sea. Mobilizing so many soldiers and equipment on ships takes time because you have to load them on board ships and things like that. And you can't load 10,000 tanks in one ship. You can load a maximum of maybe, I don't know how many tanks you can actually have in one ship. I mean, if there's a cargo ship or something like that, you know, how many can you actually load with you? 100 at a time, maybe, or whatever, right? But it's lower numbers. It takes a while to get ready. It takes a while. Doesn't mean they're not ready. It just takes a while to get ready.
Around-the-clock flights to Europe. NATO is rushing to marshal a response force in Poland as the Polish military reinforces its defenses on its border with Russia-held Ukraine and Kaliningrad.
So this scenario right here, I just want to point out, yes, in this scenario, Russia took Ukraine. Now, in this scenario, just play along with it, right? This is something I never imagined to happen. Ukraine will never be taken by Russia. I don't think so. However, we'll have to play along with it in this scenario right
Day of fierce fighting, it's not expected that NATO will hold on to its Baltic allies for long, though that was always expected.
Yeah, I was about to say,
NATO
it's always
navies have initiated a sting of anti-submarine defenses that stretch from Greenland to
Iceland. This is quite
Iceland.
far-fetched, right? This is what I believe the Russian dream would be like. This is Putin's dream right here. However, it is based off actual intelligence that we have of how this war simulation would go. I don't believe it would go exactly like this. I think we would have a lot more advantages, especially the amount of ready soldiers that we have in the Baltics could potentially probably push it back. However, when Russia attacks, and if it attacks with everything it has, there's no hiding it. It is a significant force, even after 2 years in war in Ukraine. It is still a significant force, and it's getting more significant because it has now had time to actually build proper installations that can actually build tanks and stuff like that. It is getting more and more buildings and tanks, and eventually, after maybe 5 years or something like that, it will have a lot of capabilities because then it's going to have revamped its economy towards a wartime economy. But, you know, this is still far-fetched. I do think it's a little far-fetched, but I don't know, you know.
And to the UK to help safeguard U.S. troop ships as the first rushed reinforcements begin to load onto ships on the U.S. East and Gulf coasts. In the Baltic Sea, fierce fighting between NATO ships and the Russian Navy has kept Russian naval firepower at bay. As it has so often found itself throughout history, Russia is unable to put its fleets to sea, outnumbered and outgunned by superior NATO navies. French and Spanish aircraft carriers have moved into the Mediterranean and are steaming toward the Black Sea, where the Turkish Navy has been securing the Bosphorus Strait and cutting it off to Russian trade. From the Black Sea, NATO ships can harass Russia's southern flank with long-range missiles and airstrikes, though they still face stiff defenses based out of Crimea. In the Pacific, the U.S. Navy and Air Force have yet to stage a counterattack against Chinese forces. Ongoing missile attacks have kept the U.S. fleet far out at sea and out of range of launching their own attacks. Losses continue
that's the sound.
to mount as Chinese land-based missile strikes seek out American ships or sink and cripple them. However, the number of missiles in the Chinese inventory is rapidly diminishing. On Taiwan, the first 2 beach assaults have failed, leading China to cancel their assaults. over 5,000 Chinese soldiers lie dead on or just off of Taiwan's northern beaches. Chinese air assaults have met with similar failures, but thanks to fierce air support, 2 of the landing sites remain in Chinese control. It's cost the Chinese Air Force
5,000 soldiers killed in one day. Think about that right there. 5,000 soldiers. That's a significant number. Not to China, because they have billions, but, you know.
dearly, though, with over 50 aircraft destroyed in the first day of fighting alone. Across the island, Chinese special forces inserted secretly onto the island prior to the invasion have struck out at Taiwanese political and military leadership. Several prominent politicians are either under arrest or dead. Efforts to evacuate senior Taiwanese leadership to the mainland, where they can be used for propaganda purposes, have ended in failure, and Taiwan's president remains out of grasp of Chinese kill teams. Rather than allow Taiwan to recapture officials, Chinese special forces execute them. Hour 48. Tankers have been escorting U.S. fighter and bomber aircraft across the Pacific non-stop for the last 2 days. The bulk of the U.S. Air Forces now are stationed in civilian and military airfields across Japan, as the Japanese self-defense forces successfully fend off the worst of China's continued but diminished missile attacks. Losses to U.S. aircraft on the ground remain significant, but enough aircraft are operational to begin offensive operations. The Chinese fleet has reinitiated amphibious assaults against Taiwan under the cover of a vicious air campaign. Most of Taiwan's air defenses have been neutralized by now, including the majority of the Taiwanese Air Force. However, as the assault commences, Chinese airborne radar detects a massive air assault of F-15 and F-18s, backed up with multiple tankers and EWACs for support. The F-18s have been launched from the surviving Pacific Fleet carriers and ferried to their destination with the support of drone tankers. The U.S. Air Force's F-15s have been flying for hours from Japanese air bases, accompanied by their Japanese allies. The U.S. and Japanese tanker fleet has remained in orbit around the seas south of Japan, topping off the massive air fleet and ready to help fuel-starved combatants return home. The largest air battle of modern war is about to begin. Chinese interceptors move to defend the amphibious assault from both the northern and eastern air assault. China's lack of aircraft carriers forces the fighters to remain close to Taiwan's shore, which exposes them to surviving air defense units, forcing the Chinese to turn on afterburners and try to meet the American and Japanese forces out at sea. There's another reason for trying to close the distance as rapidly as possible, and it becomes apparent as the first missile lock warnings ring out across the cockpits of Chinese fighters. Stealthy F-22s and F-35s are leading the assault, launching new generation long-range air-to-air missiles at the Chinese jets. The result is dramatic, as Chinese fighters are forced to dive to try to juke off the American missiles. With 2 missiles fired at each hostile, many Chinese fighters fail to shake off the missiles and are...
Alright, well, listen, I mean, I want to watch it all, but I feel like it's a little, you know, you get it. I think I'm gonna end the stream here as well. I've got to do some other stuff, so I was a little bit... I have to end the stream here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for stopping by here. We are, of course, coming back tomorrow with some more streaming. Have a good day. Have a good night. I will see you all tomorrow, and we will be back with more tomorrow. So, thank you so much for being here. Goodbye.